The anime begins with our protagonist, Hachimen Hikigaya, who is deep in thought about life in high school. He believes that today's youth is centered around superficial things like hanging out with friends, romantic relationships, betrayals between friends and couples, and so on. Hachimen is distanced from this kind of youth, which is why he wrote an exclusive essay for his teacher, Shizuka Hiratsuka, hoping that someone would hear his views on modern youth. After reading the protagonist's essay, the teacher gets upset as she feels that the boy is being too shallow in his views on youth, since there are many other things beyond what he describes in his essay. Hachimen stands firm in his beliefs, and a heated argument begins with Shizuka, who nearly knocks him out, though she manages to control her anger in time. The teacher refuses to let the boy's disastrous and superficial essay slide. As a punishment, she takes him to Yukino Kinoshita, a mysterious girl at school. Once the teacher leaves, Hachimen can't help but feel nervous having Yukino so close to him because in the past he had confessed his love to her, but she did not reciprocate. As a result, he now feels uncomfortable around Yukino. However, he quickly changes his mindset, believing that she only likes extremely affectionate boys, and since he isn't like that, he knows he will never get a second chance with her. In the midst of a conversation between the two, he asks her what she is doing in this empty room, to which she replies that the room isn't empty, as both he and she are in it. Yukino explains to him that this room is none other than the service club room, a club where people like her are dedicated to helping those who need assistance with their teenage problems. In this case, Yukino is tasked with helping Hachimen, as the teacher Shizuka brought him to the club for Yukino to help him. When Yukino tells him that she has to help him with his teenage problems, he gets upset, insisting over and over again that he has no problems, as he considers himself a perfect guy in every way. He describes himself as smart, handsome, and above all sane, so he doesn't need help from anyone. At this, Yukino can't help but notice that Hachimen does indeed have problems, which she deduced from the narcissistic way he described himself. This prompts her to offer him a helping hand because if he doesn't resolve his issues, he could have trouble socializing and fitting into society. Hachimen refuses to accept Yukino's help. Seeing that the two young people couldn't connect due to their differences, she decided to end the service club's session for the day. The next day, Hachimen returns to the club on his own, something that surprises Yukino. She asks him why he came back, and he simply replies that he did because he wanted to. After this, he asks if she has any friends, as he always sees her alone. She responds that she doesn't have any friends because as a popular and beautiful girl, everyone hates and envies her. While the boys pursue her to flirt or propose inappropriate things, the girls envy her for being pretty and having all the boys at her feet. Because of this, Yukino is a solitary girl who prefers being alone rather than being in bad company. Hearing this, Hachimen starts to understand Yukino a bit more, and he realizes that they share something in common: loneliness. As a result, he proposes that they be friends, but before he can finish his sentence, she rejects the idea. After this, a girl named Yu Yugahama arrives at the club. Yu is a cheerful girl, but a bit clumsy, or at least that's how she sees herself. Hours later, when the young people go to the cooking club to prepare something to eat, Yu makes her first dish, which turns out poorly. Because of this, she becomes depressed and doesn't hesitate to throw in the towel, declaring herself terrible at cooking. Yukino responds with harsh yet comforting words, which changes Yu's mindset, and she becomes determined to try cooking again because giving up after the first failure is only for weak people, and she doesn't want to be like that. On her second attempt, Yu once again makes an unappetizing dish, and she can't help but feel frustrated. Luckily for her, our protagonist steps in to give her a valuable lesson. He tells her that the cookies she bakes don't need to be delicious. They just need to have a unique and special flavor that sets them apart from the rest. The downside is that the boy illustrated his advice by relating it to how girls have preferences for certain types of boys, which obviously upset Yu. Regardless, Yu practiced as much as she could in the kitchen, and when she finally felt confident about the taste of her cookies, she didn't hesitate to give some to Yukino, who had given her the wise advice not to give up after the first failure. Yu also gave some cookies to Hachimen, who had also offered her advice. Upon tasting Yu's cookies, he ate them with disgust because they tasted horrible, but at least he was satisfied knowing that Yu had followed his advice to make her cookies have a unique flavor. On a new day at high school, our protagonist looks around and notices several things. He observes how the other students are part of friend groups in which he obviously doesn't belong. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as these friend groups are like packs of animals, where the leader always strives to be seen as the leader by the other pack members, using unorthodox methods. In the case of the popular group, the leader is a boy named Hayato Hayama, a guy who didn't hesitate to take away his poor classmate's portable console to show it off to his group, solidifying his status as the leader of the pack. In this popular group is also Yu, but she's almost part of the group against her will, as she doesn't share the same interests as they do. Hachimen couldn't help but notice how uncomfortable Yu looks when she's with the popular kids. They invite her to have lunch with them, and though she thanks them, she has to decline the invitation because she has some pending matters. Yu apologizes to the second leader of the group named Miura Yumiko. Miura gets angry at Yu's apology because she wants an explanation as to why she won't be able to have lunch with them before accepting her apologies. Miura forces Yu to explain, making Yu feel very intimidated and scared. Fortunately for her, Yukino arrives just in time to save her by saying that she was waiting for Yu to have lunch. Upon hearing this, Mira is shocked as she never imagined her friend Yu had planned to have lunch with Yukino, the most popular girl in the school. This, of course, enrages Mira because she also considers herself a popular girl, but unfortunately for her, Yukino delivers some harsh truths that bring her down from her pedestal and expose her as a mean queen in front of the other students. After Yukino leaves, the atmosphere in the classroom becomes tense, prompting all the students to leave, except for Mira and Yui. Yu takes advantage of being alone with Mira to explain that she has social anxiety, making it difficult for her to voice her opinions without feeling scared of being judged and humiliated. Yu lets Mira know that she doesn't tolerate some of her attitudes toward her and others, but despite this, she's willing to be her friend as long as she changes her behavior. Mira ignores everything Yu says and replies with a dismissive "alright, whatever." After this, Yu leaves the classroom, and upon seeing Hachiman, she can't help but think that he overheard the entire conversation between her and Mira. As a result, she gets angry with him and sticks her tongue out. Later, our protagonist heads to the service club, and to his surprise, Yukino and Yui are standing outside the room. He notices their fear and asks what's going on. They tell him there's a strange guy inside, and that's why they're too scared to go in. Hachiman ventures inside, and once there, he finds a guide who seems to know him. His person's name is Yoshiteru Zamakuza, who turns out to be an old acquaintance of our protagonist, and he came here to talk to him. Yoshiteru calls our boy by name, but Hachiman pretends not to know him. However, when Yoshiteru embarrasses himself and Hachiman by mentioning that they both aspire to be high-level swordsmen, Hachiman decides to step in. Our protagonist explains to Yukino and Yu that Yoshiteru is a childhood friend who has 8th grade syndrome, a condition where teens and even adults act like children and see the world as a fantasy story. Hachiman goes on to explain that Yoshiteru was the one who introduced him to that fantasy world, and although he enjoyed it in the past, he was able to leave it behind before developing the syndrome like Yoshiteru. Yoshiteru behaves like a child in front of Yukino, which annoys her greatly, so she doesn't hesitate to be harsh with him, treating him like an adult and putting him in his place for his own mental well-being. During this, Hachiman drops several papers, which are the reason he came to the service club in the first place. He reveals that these papers are the manuscripts of a light novel he's writing, and since he has no friends to ask for their opinion, he decided to come to this club so his friend Hachiman could give him some feedback. Yukino finds it sad that Yoshiteru has no one else to turn to with his problems, so she and Hachiman agree to read Yoshiteru's manuscript. After a long reading session that lasted several days and left Yukino quite exhausted, she prepared to give her opinion to Yoshiteru. Yukino didn't hold back, telling him that his light novel was complete garbage with many errors here and there. These words deeply affected Yoshiteru, and Hachiman had to step in to stop her from being even more cruel to him. Then it was Yu's turn to give her opinion, but since she had read the novel, she simply complimented Yoshiteru on his kanji usage. Of course, Yoshiteru took this as a joke, and it depressed him even more than Yukino's harsh words had. When it was finally Hachiman's turn, he simply advised Yoshiteru to focus on illustrations, as he believed Yoshiteru could do a better job with those than with writing. Thanks to this, Yoshiteru felt better and was willing to rewrite his novel with a new perspective. And although Yukino and Yu's words hurt him, at least he found some peace knowing that 2 other people besides Hachiman had read his novel. The next day, our protagonist practices tennis alone as he wouldn't like to practice with his classmates, especially not with Hayato and his group. Lost in his thoughts while practicing, he accidentally hits himself with a tennis ball. Because of this, he decides to take a break for lunch. Yu appears to keep him company and chat for a while. As they talk, a classmate of his shows up to compliment him on his unique way of practicing tennis. This catches Hachiman's attention, so much so that he blushes at the simple fact that a girl saw him practicing tennis alone. But to his surprise, this girl isn't actually a girl, but a boy named Seika Tatsuka, who is easily mistaken for a girl due to his feminine appearance. With this realization, the protagonist changes his perspective on Seika, now seeing him as a very handsome boy, and he can't help but feel nervous around him, as Seika's damsel in distress demeanor melts him inside. Setting this aside, after some tennis practice, Seika asks Hachiman to join the tennis club as several members will be leaving when they finish their final year of high school. Our protagonist decides to help him, but before joining the tennis club, he consults Yukino to let her know that he plans to leave the service club to join the tennis club just to help Seika. Upon hearing this, Yukino tells him that he can't leave the club, exclaiming that he can help Seika in other ways. Yukino advises Hachiman on various ways he can help Seika improve the tennis club, such as training hard every day to get better and not needing other members for the club. Of course, our protagonist doesn't like Yukino's advice at all, so he tries to explain why he should join the tennis club. But at that moment, Yu arrives at the room with Seika. Yu brought Seika to get advice from Yukino, since she's the president of the service club after all. Before Yukino helps Seika, she tells Yu that she isn't part of the service club as she never submitted a membership request. This alarms Yu, as she had assumed all this time that she was part of the club since she had been treated like a member. Yukino's first task for Yui is to help Seika train hard to improve physically when playing tennis with his club, As days pass, we see Seika physically exhausted, but he still has enough strength to keep training a bit longer. In the middle of a tennis practice, Miura, Hayato, and their group show up to try to take over the tennis court just to annoy our protagonists. Hachiman quickly puts Hayato in his place, pointing out that he's just a popular boy who wants to do anything to be seen as a leader in front of his friends, like in this case, where he wants to take over the tennis court to please Miura and the rest of his friends. This angers Hayato so much that he challenges our protagonist to a tennis match, with the winner getting to keep the court for the rest of the day. Hachiman accepts, so he teams up with Yu to face Hayato, who teams up with Miura. Thus, the tennis match begins. As the match progresses, Yu starts struggling to block the opponent's shots, and at one point, she injures her ankle. Because of this, she is forced to leave the match, but this doesn't mean she'll let Hachiman play alone. Yu steps out for a moment and returns with Yukino, who takes her place in the match. Yukino is cold and determined to crush Miura's pride and ego, as she won't allow her to continue humiliating Yu, whom she now considers a friend. When the match resumes with Yukino's presence, she is able to land several shots, as it turns out she's very skilled at tennis. The downside is that she lacks enough energy to play for a long time, causing her to tire quickly before she can secure victory for her team. Because of this, she leaves the rest to Hachiman, who becomes nervous as he doesn't feel confident he can win on his own. Fortunately for him, the universe is on his side, and thanks to two special shots, one aided by the wind and the other by the sun, our protagonist manages to score 2 points, giving his team the victory. Ironically, this victory wasn't widely celebrated, as while the students watching the match focused on consoling Hayato and Miura, Yukino left with Yu to take care of her injured foot. The silver lining of the match is that Seika feels grateful to Hachiman for winning on his behalf, and he obviously thanks him. In response, Hachiman tells him that there's no need to thank him as he didn't do all the work. The girls helped too. On a new day, Hachiman prepares to go to high school once again, only this time he has to do it with his younger sister, Komachi. This is unusual for him, so he asks her why she's so eager to join him. She responds that she wants to make sure he arrives at school safe and sound, reminding him that on the first day of classes, he had a traffic accident. Hachiman remembers that day vividly, as if it were yesterday. On his first day of school, he was riding his bike to high school, and along the way, he saw a dog about to get hit by a car. His first instinct was to step in and move the dog out of the way. While he succeeded, he ended up being hit, and as a result, he spent at least 2 weeks in the hospital. Putting that story aside, our protagonist rides his bike to school with Komachi, but first he makes a stop to drop her off at her middle school. After that, he heads to his high school, where the first thing he does is go to the service club room. After a brief chat with Yukino, Yu arrives to tell them that she received a strange message on her phone where all the students at the school are being insulted. At first, Yukino thinks Hachiman sent the message, and although she has no proof, she has no doubts either. In response, Yu informs Yukino that the message wasn't sent by Hachiman because the number doesn't match his. This leaves Yukino doubtful, so she starts thinking about who might be responsible for sending the message. Suddenly, Hayato enters the room to ask for help, as he was told to come here if he needed assistance with anything. He tells them that a strange message exposing all of his friends is circulating throughout the school, and that's why he came, believing this is a problem the protagonists can solve since they're part of the service club after all. Yukino agrees to help Hayato, but makes it clear that her help always targets the root of the problem, meaning she wants to find a solution that will completely eliminate it. In this case, the solution Yukino suggests is to find the person responsible for sending the chain message and give them what they deserve. Hearing this, Hayato gets nervous as he doesn't think that's necessary. All he wants is to stop the message from spreading. Yukino continues to insist on her idea, so Hayato has no choice but to give in and accept her help. Delving deeper into the matter, our protagonists try to find the culprit, and that's when our protagonist reminds them that the message started appearing discreetly on some students' phones over the weekend, right when the team excursion planning began. Because of this, Yukino starts to believe that the culprit is one of the members of those teams, and the first group that comes to her mind is the popular group, which Hayato is part of. Hearing this, Hayato explains to Yukino that his friends wouldn't be capable of doing something so cruel. He clarifies that his friends Tobe, Yamato, and Uka aren't people who wish harm on anyone, even though some of them are egotistical, cold, or dependent on others. Based on these descriptions, Yukino's mind starts racing as any of Hayato's friends could be responsible for sending the chain message throughout the school. That's why she tries to come up with a way to spy on these boys to figure out which one is the culprit. But before Yukino can devise a solid plan, Hachiman and Yu decide to play detective to uncover the truth. First, Yu tries to talk discreetly with Miura to get her to reveal what she knows. But unfortunately, everything goes wrong. Yu mentioned to Miura that she noticed something strange between Tobe, Yamato, and Uka, which led Hina, Miura's close friend, to misunderstand Yu's words. Since Hina is a Fujoshi, she started talking about the romantic tension between the three boys. As a result, Yu didn't uncover anything, so now it's Hachiman's turn. He uses his unbeatable technique, which is sitting still and pretending to be asleep. This way, he was unnoticed and can observe everyone without them noticing him, allowing him to pick up on even the smallest details of others' behavior. Although Hachiman doesn't manage to discover who sent the chain message, he does notice that Hayato's friends don't get along with each other. They're only friendly when Hayato is present. Because of this, Hachiman advises Hayato to do something to help his friends get along better with each other. Hayato follows his advice and decides not to team up with his friends for the excursion. Thanks to this, Tobe, Yamato, and Uko will be forced to form a team on their own. But this isn't a bad thing, as it seems they'll gradually get along better than before. On the other hand, now that Hayato doesn't have a team for the excursion, he asks Hachiman if he can team up with him. Nervously, Hachiman agrees and Seika shows up, upset with him because she also wants to be part of his team. The protagonist accepts Seika into his team, so their team of 3 is now complete. He can't help but feel uncomfortable, as we know he's always been an antisocial guy who can't stand the behavior of today's youth. The next day, our protagonist arrives late to class, and as a result, the teacher Shizuka gives him a good scolding, not for being late, but for the excuses he gave her. However, he isn't the only one who's late, as a classmate named Saki Kawasaki also arrives. She's a strange one, as she doesn't talk much and seems to have no friends. However, she knows our protagonist and doesn't hesitate to call him useless when she sees him lying on the floor after the scolding from the teacher. Later, Yukino, Yu, and Seika are having a girls' meeting, and since our protagonist was nearby, he decided to join in. Naturally, they're not very happy to have him there, but they accept his presence once his sister shows up and sits next to them. Kamashi came to ask her brother and his friends for help with a problem concerning her classmate named Teishi. It turns out that Teishi is Saki's younger brother, and he tells everyone that his sister has been acting very rebellious lately. Teishi explains that Saki has been coming home late, and he suspects she's living a delinquent nightlife. That's why he's here. He needs someone to help his sister. In response, Yukino decides to help him, and of course she would, being the leader of the service club. Yukino's first idea is to use Hachiman's cat as bait so that Saki will see it and show her more affectionate and human side. Ironically, this plan's a complete failure, as Teishi tells our protagonist over the phone that his sister is allergic to cats. Because of this, Yukino resorts to her next plan, telling everything to the teacher, Shizuka, so that she can be the adult to solve Saki's problem. But once again, everything goes wrong when Saki tells Shizuka exactly what she thinks, exclaiming that she shouldn't meddle in other people's business and suggesting she focus on her own life instead of others. After this, Yu comes up with one last idea, getting Hayato to confess his feelings to Saki so that she can show her sweeter side. Unfortunately, Saki rejects Hayato in record time, and when he tells the others, Hachiman can't help but laugh at how comical the situation is. Suddenly, he receives a call from his sister, who tells him that with Teishi's help, she discovered that Saki works at a place called Angel. After some thorough investigation, our protagonists discover that there are only 2 places in town with the name Angel. The first is a maid cafe, and after going in, Yukino finds out that Saki's name is not on the employee list. So the group decides to visit the second place named Angel, which is a luxurious hotel. Once the protagonists dress up elegantly, they head to the top floor of the hotel, where there's a small bar. Here, they discover that the bartender is none other than Saki. She's surprised to see them, and no matter how much they try to get information about why she works there, she refuses to give them an answer, as it's something that doesn't concern them. After a heated argument between Saki and Yukino about their respective parents, Yukino decides to leave with Yu, while Hachiman asks Saki to meet him the next day at a cafe in town, as he wants to talk seriously with her about Teishi. The next day, Saki arrives at the cafe and is surprised to see that not only is our protagonist there, but also Yukino, Yui, Hachiman's sister, and her own brother. Teishi, visibly worried about his sister, prompts the protagonist to reveal why Saki works late at the bar. Hachiman explains that Saki works late to pay for Teishi's school tuition, as well as to cover her own university scholarship. Hearing this, Saki has no choice but to admit that what Hachiman said is true, confessing to her brother that she does it so she won't have to rely on their parents. With everything now clear, Teishi fully understands his sister and supports her decision to work at the bar, but he asks her to try coming home earlier. Saki agrees, and the two return home together. After this, our protagonist and his sister head home together, and on the way, she mentions that she couldn't help but notice how Yu looks at him with a lot of love. She's happy about this, revealing to him that Yu is the girl who owns the dog he saved on the first day of school. Hearing this, Hachiman is stunned, as he never imagined the dog he saved belonged to Yu, but at least now he understands why she's always treated him with such affection. The next day, our protagonist asks Yu to stop being so kind and sweet to him, explaining that she shouldn't act that way just because he saved her dog. He continues, telling her that he knows she's been acting that way because she developed feelings for him after he saved her dog, but Yu gives a forced laugh and insists that she doesn't like him at all. Ironically, the truth comes out when tears suddenly start falling from her eyes, making it clear that his words broke her heart. She then runs away, but not before calling him immature. A week later, the relationship between our protagonist and Yui is quite tense after what happened. She completely ignores him, and now that she doesn't want anything to do with him, she has rejoined the popular kids group. Unfortunately, this means she has no intention of returning to the service club. Yukino can't help but ask Hachiman if something happened between him and Yu that caused her to stop coming to the club. The protagonist responds that although he had an argument with Yu, and it's not a good enough reason for her to skip the club today. A little later, when the teacher Shizuka finds out what happened, she assigns our protagonist the task of recruiting a new club member, as it's been proven that they are more friendly and willing to help others when there is a third member. Hachiman plans to recruit Seika, but Yukino believes that with a little persistence, Yui will return to the club. Since Yu's birthday is coming up, Yukino thinks the best way to bring her back to the club is by buying her a nice gift. When the weekend arrives, our protagonists visit the mall where they search for the perfect gift for Yu, but a problem arises. Yukino doesn't know Yu's tastes well, so she asks our protagonist to help her choose a good gift, but she asks him to do so by pretending to be her boyfriend, something that surprises him, but he doesn't hesitate to accept. Thus, Yukino tries on dozens of outfits that she thinks Yu might like, but unsure of her choices. She asks for Hachiman's opinion. He comments on each outfit, saying they don't suit her and therefore wouldn't suit Yu either. Suddenly, a girl approaches Yukino and says she's happy to see her. Yukino is surprised because she knows this girl. She is none other than her older sister, Haruno. Haruno is a very sociable and friendly girl, always smiling from ear to ear and showing her joy for life. In this particular case, she's happy for two reasons. First, she's happy to see her sister after a long time. And second, because she thinks her sister is in a romantic relationship with Hachiman. Naturally, Haruno teases Yukino about this, but once our protagonists clarify that they're not a couple, Haruno decides to leave and continue on her way, but not before telling our protagonist that it was nice to meet him. After this unusual scene, a dog suddenly runs up to our protagonist. The dog seems to recognize him, which leaves Hachiman shocked. Yu shows up to retrieve the dog, as it turns out to be hers, which explains why the dog approached our protagonist in the first place. Putting that aside, Yu couldn't help but notice that Hachiman is with Yukino, leading her to believe that there's more than just friendship between the two. That's why she decides to leave to avoid interfering, but before she goes, Yukino asks her to visit the service club room the next day because she wants to have a serious talk with her. Fearing what Yukino might tell her, Yu agrees. The next day, Yu arrives at the service club room, where Yukino tells her that she called her here to clear everything up once and for all. Yukino explains that there's no romance between her and Hachiman, as he's the last person in the world she wants to be with. On the other hand, Yukino wants to celebrate Yu's birthday and does so by giving her the gift she bought for her. Afterwards, she thanks Yu for being part of the club, always being helpful to the students who have come seeking assistance. After this, our protagonist also gives Yu a gift. He tells her that this gift symbolizes the appreciation he has for her for being kind and affectionate toward him. He explains that she doesn't need to continue being that way with him, telling her that the issue with her dog is in the past and should stay there. Of course, Yu isn't willing to accept this as she still feels indebted to him, but fortunately, Yukino steps in to give both of them some good advice. Yukino realized that the two grew distant due to a misunderstanding related to Yu's dog. That's why she suggests they start their friendship over from scratch. After this, Yukino leaves and Yu decides to follow her advice. The first thing she does is open the gift Hachiman gave her, which turns out to be a necklace. She tries it on and asks him for his opinion, but he points out that the necklace is actually a dog collar. Hearing this, Yu gets upset with him for not telling her earlier, so she leaves, a little annoyed, but at least happy that from now on, their relationship will go back to what it once was, only this time with a new perspective on friendship. After a couple of weeks, summer vacation arrives, allowing our protagonist to enjoy not having to see any of his classmates. He greatly enjoys playing on his portable console, and although he receives messages from his friends and his teacher Shizuka, he ignores them. Suddenly, his sister appears to ask him to go out for a walk now that they're on vacation. He has no choice but to agree, but he regrets it as soon as they run into Shizuka along the way. To make matters worse, Yukino, Yu, and Seika show up too. As it turns out, this was all an ambush planned by Shizuka, who got tired of sending Hachiman messages and convinced Komachi to make him agree to go outside. All of this was so that Shizuka could take her students to Chiba, where she had planned some service activities for them. After they arrive at their destination, the next to arrive are Hayato and his group of friends, and with that, Shizuka reveals the real reason she brought them to this place. The teacher explains to both groups that they are responsible for helping and guiding the elementary school kids who are at a summer camp. Both our protagonist's group and Hayato's group have no choice but to follow Shizuka's orders, so after introducing themselves to the kids, they set out to take care of them. Throughout the camp, Hayato takes the lead as the friendliest person with the younger kids. He also shows the most enthusiasm in helping them, even assisting Rumi Tsuruma, a very shy and antisocial girl, to connect with the rest of her classmates. However, Rumi doesn't seem happy with Hayato's help, especially after later realizing that he is an arrogant guy who tries to act helpful, just to look good in front of others. Because of this, she distances herself from him and approaches our protagonist and Yukino. Rumi formally introduces herself to them, and when she notices that they are both isolated from the others, she can't help but feel a connection with them, as she too is a girl isolated from everyone else. Although she likes being alone and can't tolerate others, just like Hachimen in this case, she's been isolated against her will since she didn't want to come to the camp in the first place. When our protagonist feels sorry for her, they don't hesitate to tell Shizuka. The teacher feels bad for the girl, but since she brought her students to this camp to help the younger ones, she leaves it in their hands. In response, Yukino, Hachimen, and Hayato try to find a way to help Rumi, but no matter how many crazy ideas they come up with, none seem convincing, as Rumi is the kind of person who prefers to be alone rather than talk to someone about her problems. This is something Mayura strongly believes, and she compares Rumi to Yukino, which causes the two to end up arguing. At nightfall, our protagonist leaves his room to think of a solution for Rumi's problem and is surprised to find Yukino in the middle of the forest. He asks her what she's doing alone in the forest at this hour, to which she responds that she's feeling thoughtful due to the argument she had with Miura. It turns out that the argument escalated in private to the point where Miura couldn't hold back and cried uncontrollably because of Yukino's hurtful words. Naturally, Yukino feels guilty for having caused this, but she finds it curious that Yu stepped in to console Miura. This led her to think that Yu might be a key piece in solving Rumi's problem, as she feels that Yu's positive and friendly attitude comes from having been a shy and antisocial girl like Rumi in her childhood. Yukino considers that Yu could be the person to pull the young girl out of her abyss. The next day, Shizuka informs her students that they need to prepare a bonfire for that night because she plans to organize a spooky costume game using the bonfires as checkpoints. This is something Hachimen has no desire to do, but he must participate whether he likes it or not. After setting up his bonfire, he takes a break and decides to head to the camp's river. There he finds his sister and Yu in swimsuits, and he can't help but lose his composure at the sight. A bit later, Shizuka, Seika, Yukino, and Miura join them. The tension between Yukino and Miura, still lingering from the previous night's events, causes a strained atmosphere when they exchange glances. While the girls enjoy their time in the river, Hachimen doesn't have as much fun, primarily because he doesn't have a swimsuit and therefore can't swim. Fortunately, he's not alone, as Rumi keeps him company since she has no activities planned for the day. With no friends, she decided to come here where she felt more comfortable. She can no longer hide her loneliness and confesses to Hachimen that she feels like a failure as a person. She can't make friends or even talk to her classmates to get along with them, as she has given up on trying, knowing it's not worth the effort because in time her classmates will forget about her. Hachimen understands Rumi's feelings and realizes this is a good opportunity to help her integrate with the other children at the camp, so she can at least feel what it's like to be part of a group of friends. He devises a brilliant plan to help her, forcing the group of girls associated with Rumi to choose which one of them to cast out. To achieve this, Hachimen uses the spooky costume game, making To, Miura, and Hayato dress up as sinister adults with the goal of scaring the group of girls that includes Rumi. When they do this, the younger girls are terrified, and the older ones tell them they have to choose 2 girls to be executed by the adults. Faced with this, all the girls agree to cast out Rumi, making her one of the chosen ones. The problem is that they still need to choose 2 more, and since each girl harbors some resentment towards the others over minor details, they don't hesitate to reveal these truths to eliminate one another. After one more girl is chosen, they just need to pick the last one. But before they can do so, Rumi does the unexpected. She uses her camera's flash to blind the sinister adults, allowing her and the other girls to escape safely. Thanks to this, Rumi proved to be a good person and a good friend, but it wasn't enough for the group of girls to accept her as one of their own. This revealed that Hachimen's plan was a total failure, which left his friends a bit disappointed since they trusted his idea would work. On the bright side, at least Hachimen was consoled by Yua, who offered to light some fireworks, and by Hayato, who offered him a drink. The next day, our protagonists travel from the camp back to their high school, where Haruno is already waiting anxiously for her sister. Once Haruno picks up Yukino, Yu begins to feel a strange sensation as she recognizes that the limousine Haruno arrived in is the same one that caused the accident that landed Hachimen in the hospital the day he saved her dog. On a new day, our protagonist is tasked with looking after Yu's dog since she has things to do. Luckily, she soon shows up to take her dog home, and as a thank you, she invites both Hachimen and his sister to watch the fireworks together before summer break ends. Komashi is very happy about Yu's invitation, but before she can accept, her brother tells her that he can't afford to watch the fireworks because he needs to study for the upcoming back-to-school exams. This makes Komachi sad, and since she can't accept the invitation to watch the fireworks, she lets her brother be the one to accompany Yui. On the day of the festival, Yu dresses in a lovely yukata, which makes Hachimen nervous because she looks prettier than ever. Once they arrive at the festival, Yu asks him to buy her something to eat, and he agrees. While he's doing so, a classmate of Yu's named Minami Sagami appears to greet her. Yu is, of course, happy to see her and doesn't hesitate to introduce Hachimen as her festival companion. Minami looks at him closely, and after observing him for a while, she feels a bit jealous that Yu is attending the festival with a boy. This causes both Yu and Minami to laugh, and after some friendly chatter, they part ways. When Yu returns to Hachiman, he offers her a candied apple, and just then the fireworks begin, so they decide to find a more comfortable place to watch them. While looking for a spot, they're noticed by Haruno, who invites them to the VIP section since she's there representing her father. The three of them sit down to watch the fireworks and talk about their relationships with Yukino. Haruno can't resist teasing them by saying that Hachiman and Yu look like a couple, which makes her a little sad as she would have preferred it if Yukino were the one with him. Naturally, this makes Hachiman nervous, so he makes it clear that he's not Yu's boyfriend and he doesn't want to be, nor does he want to be with Yukino. In response, Haruno gives him a brief lesson, and to change the topic, they discuss their relationship with Yukino. Yu admits to Haruno that she cares a lot for Yukino, even though she can be difficult to deal with at times. As for Hachiman, he refuses to say that he likes Yukino, but he doesn't hate her either, so he ends up saying she's just another person in his social circle. After the fireworks end, Haruno offers to give Hachiman and Yu a ride home in her limousine. However, they hesitate to accept since they recognize the vehicle as the one responsible for the accident that landed one of them in the hospital. In the end, they reject Haruno's offer. On their way home, Yu asks Hachiman if Yukino ever mentioned the accident to him, to which he replies with a firm no, saying that they shouldn't press Yukino on matters she would rather not discuss. Yu responds by saying that she wishes the three of them could get to know each other better and become closer friends. She also suggests that she and Hachiman might have become friends regardless of the accident, but Hachiman rejects Yu's theory, as he doubts they would become friends or that he would have become friends with anyone at all. Shortly after, when Yu begins to steer the conversation toward romantic feelings, she is interrupted by a call from her mother. Although she intends to continue, Hachiman tells her to take the call and she steps away in a hurry. The next day, everyone returns to school and our protagonist runs into Yukino on the stairs. They chat briefly about their vacations and Yukino mentions that Haruno told her about their chance meeting at the fireworks show. Nervously, Yukino is about to say something very important to Hachiman, but just at that moment, he interrupts her by asking if the service club will start up again, leaving her with no choice but to forget what she was going to confess and answer his question with a yes. As they part ways, Hachiman internally reflects on how much he hates himself for believing in his own view of Yukino, who is always sincere because like any ordinary person, she too can lie. The next day, our protagonist is surprised to see his name on the blackboard. Shizuka explains that since he's always late to class, she had no choice but to make him learn the hard way. In this case, she wrote his name on the board to let him know that from now on, he will be part of the student council. Shortly after, we are introduced to Meguri Shiromaguri, the student council president, who asks all the council members to choose a candidate to be in charge of the cultural festival. When Meguri sees Yukino, she doesn't hesitate to ask her to service as a candidate, noting that her sister had done so in the past and performed exceptionally well in the role. Yukino refuses to be a candidate because she feels she is nothing like her sister. For this reason, Minami steps up to offer herself as a candidate, and since no one else services, Minami ends up with the position. The problem is that Minami doesn't want to mess up her role as the leader, so she asks for help from the service club. To Hachiman and Yu's surprise, Yukino agrees to help Minami, which they find suspicious as Yukino doesn't have the best relationship with Minami. Yu suspects that Yukino's offer to help is her way of trying to improve her relationship with Minami and make herself look better in the eyes of the student council members. Yukino's help is immense because she essentially takes care of everything, while Minami remains in a submissive role. Due to Yukino's impressive work, the student council members start praising her, remarking that she should have been in charge of the cultural festival in the first place. This negatively affects Minami's ego and she can't help but feel envious of Yukino. Later, Haruno shows up at the student council room because Meguri called her, wanting her help with the cultural festival. Obviously, this doesn't please Yukino at all, but unfortunately, she'll have to endure her sister's presence in the council until the festival is over, as Minami decided to accept Haruno into the council just to annoy Yukino. As the days go by, the student council members work hard to fulfill their duties, but the one bearing the full weight of the important tasks is Yukino, who does everything herself and refuses to accept anyone's help. At one point, Hachiman notices that Yukino is working hard for her own sake, rather than because she cares about the cultural festival. Because of this, he timidly advises her to take a new approach to the festival paperwork, focusing on doing a good job with the entire team. Meguri echoes Hachiman's advice, leaving Yukino no choice but to accept working as a team. The trouble arises when all the students notice that Minami, who has done nothing but wander around the school with her friends, suddenly arrives. This made it clear to everyone that Minami doesn't deserve to be in charge of the cultural festival. To make matters worse, the next day Yukino doesn't attend school because she's sick, meaning she won't be able to save them from any disasters Minami might cause. Due to Minami's poor handling of delegating tasks to the student council members, Hachimen and Yui decide to visit Yukino at her home to talk to her about the cultural festival and her health. Once they enter the room in Yukino's apartment, she greets them warmly. Yui expresses her wish for Yukino to trust them more, as this would make her more efficient with all the pending festival work. Yukino tells Yui that she will trust her and the others at some point in the future, but for now, her trust in others is limited. The next day, the student council tries to decide on a theme for the festival. Hachimen mocks Minami's suggestion, as it is ridiculous, and suggests his own theme, human, a cultural festival where, if looked at closely, will be a means of escape. Hachimen uses this theme as an analogy for how half of the student council members shirk their responsibilities while depending on the other members in playing the victim. This earns Hachimen disdainful looks from all the members, but at least it gets a laugh out of Haruno. Yukino also chuckles at Hachimen's theme, but hides her laughter because she can see the reasoning and humor behind his words. The following day, the student council members show up in full force and Yukino continues to take charge as usual. Luckily, Hachimen works very hard to lighten Yukino's load. Haruno can't help but notice how much effort he puts into working for the festival, which leads her to tell him that if he works harder, he will motivate everyone else to join in and do better. When the festival begins, Minami makes a mistake, and as a result, she gets nervous and falters in her opening speech, revealing that she hasn't taken the time to help with the festival or be part of the student council. The protagonist goes to supervise Hime's play, where the actors are Saki and Hayato, who perform a BL play. Fortunately, the performance is so good that it turns out to be a great success. After the play, the student council members can leave their posts to take a break. Yu brings lunch to our protagonist, and during this time, they discuss the best way to approach Yukino, who has been very distant from them due to her work on the festival. After eating, Hachimen tries to pay Yu with money for the food she brought him, but Yu indirectly asks him out on a date as payment. He awkwardly realizes this, but despite his discomfort, he agrees to go out with her, so he asks her to choose a place to go. Meanwhile, Minami is in the girls' bathroom, feeling sad for not having done anything significant for the festival. The festival continues, and the student council members must get back to work. While our protagonist takes pictures of the festival, his sister suddenly appears to enjoy the festival. After this, he runs into Yukino, and the two chat about how they're managing their responsibilities for the festival. Later, there's a music orchestra in which Haruno participates. This orchestra serves as a show to fill time before the closing ceremony and the announcement of the award winners. Unfortunately, the one in charge of this last part is none other than Minami, and when a student council member tells Yukino that Minami is missing, Yukino must take the lead. Yukino doesn't hesitate to ask her sister for help to buy some time until Hachimen can find Minami. Haruno is initially unwilling to help her sister, but ends up agreeing after Yukino convinces her. After this, Yukino gets Meguri and Yu to assist Haruno with the music since Haruno's orchestra left earlier than expected. Therefore, Meguri will play the piano while Yu will be the vocalist. With everything ready, the girls prepare to take the stage. Meanwhile, our protagonist is searching for Minami throughout the school, and after consulting with Yoshiteru over the phone, he finally finds her on the roof of the lab. Once he speaks to her and asks her to return and give the closing speech, he realizes she's upset because Yukino has stolen the spotlight from her as the president of the student council, which bothers her a lot, especially since she was the one who asked Yukino for help in the first place. At that moment, Hayato and Minami's group of friends arrive to look for her, and despite their attempts to convince her to return to the festival stage, she refuses to budge. With no other options, Hachimen manipulates Minami by using her true motivations to make her feel guilty and return to the ceremony. Hayato gets furious with Hachimen because the only way he seems to operate is by playing the victim or being cruel to others, in this case to Minami. On stage, Yu, Yukino, Haruno, Meguri, and Shizuka perform their musical act and manage to buy enough time for Minami to return just in time to give her closing speech, albeit very nervously. After Minami's speech, everyone has mixed reactions regarding how Hachimen handled the situation. Some, like Hayato and Minami's friends, hate him, while Yoshiteru and Seika support Hachimen's actions. Ironically, Shizuka sides with our protagonist, praising him for always finding ways to rescue people from their problems, though she laments that he has to sacrifice his reputation to do so. In the evening in the service club room, Hachimen and Yukino talk about their first encounter and how much they've come to know each other. The boy thinks to himself that he and Yukino are quite similar after spending all this time together. He's prepared to propose being friends, but before he can finish the question, Yukino negatively responds as she already had a feeling he would ask that. Yukino confesses to Hachimen that she previously didn't accept being his friend because she didn't know him well enough, but after spending a good amount of time with him, she realized he isn't as bad as she thought, so she won't hesitate to be his friend when she gets to know him better. Soon after, Yu appears to invite them to a party organized by Hayato to celebrate the festival's success. Neither Hachimen nor Yukino feels like attending the party, as they are tired and have things to do. Because of this, Yu decides to keep them company and not attend Hayato's party. As the protagonist goes about his tasks, he reflects on how nothing can be remade in life, and that some moments are lost forever, even seemingly useless moments like hanging out in the service club. This leads him to the conclusion that in the future, he might end up missing those moments when he parts ways with the others. Days later, the members of the service club receive an email from Meguri on their website, asking for help with something important. She wants the assistance of the service club members to make this year's sports festival a great success for the students, so she requests good game proposals. In addition, Meguri also wants to participate in the festival since she wants to win because it's her last year in high school. The service club agrees to help her, and they head with Meguri to the student council room. To make the sports festival grand, they decide to have 2 games, one for the girls and another for the boys. After all the game ideas suggested by Yu and Yukino are rejected by Shizuka, our protagonist suggests asking for help from what he considers the brightest minds in the school, Yoshiteru and Hina. They quickly come up with 2 good game ideas for the sports festival, a cavalry battle for the girls' event, and a knock-down the post event for the boys. Thus, after preparing the costumes for the girls' event and having the students form their teams, red team and white team, a sports festival begins. Hayato keeps the white team in the lead, winning many events. Because of this, the red team must win both the girls' and boys' events to come out on top in the sports festival. In the girls' event, Yukino easily defeats her rival Mira. Thanks to this, Yu and Meguri are able to do the same with their opponents, and the red team wins the girls' event. Shortly after, the boys' event begins and Hachiman devises an unorthodox plan that he believes could secure victory for the red team. Our protagonist uses Yoshiteru to be as loud as he usually is. Thanks to Yoshiteru's high visibility, he manages to distract most of the participants in the sports festival. While doing this, Hachiman stealthily approaches the white team's post, disguising himself as a player from the white team using some bandages. Everything was going well until Hayato realizes their plan and he quickly moves to confront him. Our protagonist has no choice but to reveal his plan, but at that moment, he makes a new play. Hachiman sends Yoshiteru to knock down the white team's post to win the event. Thanks to Yoshiteru's great physical strength due to his body type, he successfully knocks down the rival team's post, and with that, the red team celebrates their victory. Unfortunately, the next day, our protagonists find themselves sad, as it is revealed that the red team was disqualified from the sports festival because Hachiman's plan was discovered and deemed cheating. Because of this, our protagonists promise to give their best effort in next year's sports festival. On a new day at the high school, Shizuka recruits the members of the service club to help her prepare a magazine to promote the growth of the city of Chiba. One of the sections of the magazine will focus on making love and marriage more appealing to today's youth, as they see marriage as a waste of time and money, especially our protagonist. Yukino finds it strange that Shizuka is delegating this work to the service club, as it's something she should be doing herself. In response, Shizuka quickly reveals that she has delegated her work because she has no idea about marriage, and after mentioning this, she becomes quite sentimental. Once they begin working on the magazine, Hachiman and Yukino start planning how to fill the magazine's space, even considering selling ad space to advertisers. At this, Shizuka mentions that they cannot sell advertising space for personal profit, so they ask for better ideas. Our protagonist and Yukino exchange ideas again, but they both end up admitting that they have no clue about romantic relationships. This is why they ask Yu to propose some ideas. Unfortunately, all of Yu's ideas are rejected until she admits that she has never thought about marriage until now. In the end, they collectively decide to conduct surveys among the high school students about their thoughts on marriage. Once they submit the surveys and see that the responses are not what they expected, as they vary greatly, our protagonists realize that the surveys were a waste of time. This leads Yukino to call someone she knows who is skilled at taking care of useless people and doing household chores. The protagonist is very excited to meet this person, and when Komachi appears, he changes his expression as he never imagined that his sister would be the one skilled at taking care of useless people. It's at this moment that he realizes Yukino is mocking him by referring to him as a useless person. Putting this aside, Komachi steps into action, and after looking at the surveys and listening to the protagonists, she discards the surveys they conducted. She suggests that they redirect the project toward how to be a better wife instead of focusing on marriage. Komachi proposes that she, along with Shizuka, Yu, and Yukino, compete in a bride contest to reveal which of them would make a good future wife. She assigns her brother Yoshiteru and Seika as the judges of the contest, and after this, the contest begins. The first part of the contest is a homemade cooking competition. The first to present her dish is Yu, who prepares steak for a Japanese hamburger called wafyu. This hamburger looks unappetizing, so neither Hachiman nor Seika is willing to try it. After tasting the hamburger, Yoshiteru faints, leaving only Seika and our protagonist to try it. Hachiman refuses to let Tatsuka taste the hamburger as he doesn't want to see him suffer. As a result, he ends up eating the whole dish himself and gives his final verdict to Yua, which is not positive at all. Next, it's Yukino's turn, who prepared a Spanish pala that impresses everyone with its rich flavor, earning her points in her favor. Komachi is third, but her nikujaga dish loses points because her brother feels like she is bribing him with one of his favorite dishes. Finally, Shizuka serves a large portion of stir-fried bean sprouts and meat covered with meat sauce and rice. The The protagonist is surprised after tasting it, as it is really delicious, so he gives her a couple of points. Continuing with the contest, it's now time for a new competition, a quiz about brides, and this time our protagonist will participate as he believes he needs to become a good husband. After several questions, none of the competitors get it right until they reach the question about what they would do if their partner started coming home late from work without giving explanations. Ironically, the one who partially answers correctly is Hachiman, who considers that the best approach in that case is to trust, as one should trust the person they are dating. Because of this, our protagonist earns many points compared to the other girls, but since he is not part of the bride contest, his points don't mean anything. The third challenge of the contest is a bridal dress parade. First, Komachi showcases her wedding dress. After her comes Yu and Yukino, and finally Shizuka. The latter enters dramatically, stunning everyone with her great beauty and elegance. After this, it's time to announce the official winner of the bride contest, and before Komachi can reveal that she herself is the winner since none of the other girls compared to her, Shizuka intimidates her with a look, leading Komachi to ultimately declare Shizuka as the winner of the bride contest. Following this, the group of friends decides to take a group photo to cherish this beautiful moment of friendship. Days later, while the protagonist prepares his article for Shizuka's magazine, Yu calls him on behalf of Yukino. The latter is impatient because he is taking too long with his section and wants to know when it will be ready. She tells him to hurry and send her his part before hanging up. The protagonist complies but is puzzled that she called in from Yu's phone, thinking it would be better if she called from her own phone. Regardless, Hachiman continues writing his article, in which he advises the readers that since no amount of preparation can truly prepare someone for the unforeseen future, they should claim their desired husbands, as everyone deserves to be happy in this contest called life. Season 2. After the cultural festival and the sports festival, everything returns to normal. Our protagonist goes back to being the antisocial boy he used to be, although at least he still has the great friendship of Seika, Yu, and Yukino. In the middle of a meeting in the service club room, Yukino prepares tea and serves it to her friends. While they sip tea, they have a discussion about the trip to Kyoto, during which Yukino explains her plans in excessive detail. Hachiman and Yu suspect that Yukino is really excited about the trip, even though she doesn't want to admit it. Suddenly, Hayato and Tove enter the room to ask for help. Hayato explains that they came because their friend needs assistance with a matter of utmost importance, but surprisingly, Tove ends up being rude to our protagonist as he doesn't want to explain the reason for his visit. Because of this, Yukino tells him that the service club does not help self-centered people who expect others to know their problems without having any idea about them. This prompts Yukino to ask Tove and Hayato to leave as they are just wasting her time. With no other option, Tove explains his problem. He needs help creating the right atmosphere to confess his feelings to Hina during the field trip. Yu and Yukino have opposing opinions about whether to help him or not, so they let our protagonist decide. Hachiman ultimately agrees and asks Tove if he is aware of the risks involved in confessing to a girl. Hachiman knows these risks all too well, as he once confessed to a girl, and the day after that incident, everyone in his classroom made fun of him. Tove doesn't care about this, as he knows he will have the support of his friends if he gets rejected by Hina, which is why he is willing to listen to Hachiman and the girl's ideas. Yu plans a series of strategies for Tove's confession during the trip, but at that moment, Hina appears to ask for their help with something specific. She came to ask them to do everything they can to restore the friendship between Hayato, Tove, Yamato, and Uka, making it what it used to be, best friends. Hina specifically points to our protagonist, highlighting that he needs to take charge of reuniting this separated group of friends, as he was the one who separated them in the first place. The next day, the students depart for the trip to Kyoto. On the train, Yu tries to seat Tove and Hina together, but this doesn't work out, as Hina decides to sit next to her instead. During the journey to Kyoto, Tove is extremely nervous as sitting next to Saki makes him very anxious, which prevents him from attempting to interact with Hina. Similarly, throughout the tour of various tourist spots in Kyoto, Tove struggles to get closer to Hina, but he succeeds thanks to the discreet help of Yu and Hachiman. In the evening, the protagonist encounters Yukino in the hotel lobby. She was about to secretly grab a stuffed bear, as she doesn't want anyone to see her cute side, but when she notices Hachiman's presence, she decides to put her cute side aside for the moment. She sits next to him, and they discuss the progress of Tove's request for help, where they both agree that they should give him some time to confess to Hina. While continuing to talk about this, they spot Shizuka sneaking out of the hotel. It turns out that she was going to a private adult party in secret, but now that Hachiman and Yukino saw her, she decides to take them out for ramen to buy their silence, as she doesn't want anyone else to find out about this. After eating ramen, our protagonist and Yukino walk back to the hotel, but Yukino feels uncomfortable as she doesn't want others to see them entering together because it could generate rumors about them. In response, our protagonist, like a true gentleman, decides to let Yukino enter the hotel alone while he waits outside. This gesture strikes Yukino as somewhat sweet, and she thanks him. On a new day, our protagonist has a dream where he remembers the list of memories for the trip that Komachi gave him. He quickly returns to reality after Seika repeatedly calls his name while he is asleep. Later, everyone goes to a haunted house exhibit where two groups are formed. The first group consists of Hayato, Miura, Tove, and Hina. The second group is made up of Hachimen, Seika, Saki, and Yu. Saki is terrified by Hina's laughter, while Seika seems to enjoy the haunted house. At one frightening moment, Yu bumps her head against our protagonists, causing Saki to flee, as she never wanted to be part of this group in the first place. Because of this, Seika decides to follow her. The protagonist offers his hand to Yu to help her up, which surprises both him and Yu. At the end of the tour, the boy notices Hayato's uncooperative behavior again. Afterward, they meet Yukino at Ryoan Temple, where she asks them about the progress of Tove's request for help. They explain that they haven't made much progress, which is why Yukino offers her contribution in the form of a paper that contains a list of places the girls would like to visit. In the evening, our protagonist runs into Miura in a store while she flips through some magazines. She rudely tells him to stay away from Hina and not interfere with her, explaining the delicacy of the situation that will affect their group. Miura explains that in the past, many boys tried to get close to Hina, and when she tried to help them, Hina acted as if she didn't know them. Because of this, our boy finally understands the reason for Hina's visit to the service club. He promises Miura that everything will be fine, as he is sure that Hayato is planning something, which reassures Miura. Days later, the students are free to spend time with whoever they want, so the members of the service club spend time together and meet up with Hayato's group. Hina asks Hachimen if he remembers her request and questions him about the progress with the boys. The boy explains his perspective on the matter, to which Hina ends the conversation by telling him she is counting on him. The members of the service club visit the bamboo forest, where they decide this will be the perfect place for Tove to confess to Hina. Once everything is ready, Tove arrives at the location, completely nervous, so our protagonist takes this time to try to calm him down with his relaxing words. Hachimen asks Tove what he will do if Hina rejects him. Tove replies that he won't give up, and our boy encourages him to maintain that attitude until the end. Yukino and Yu tease Hachimen about this, but he explains that there is a good chance Tove will be rejected, so he tells them he has a plan B. When Yukino and Yu ask him about his strategy, the boy remains silent. Nevertheless, they approve of the plan just as Hina appears. Before Tove can confess to Hina, our protagonist executes his plan to prevent Tove from being rejected and to avoid the internal destruction of Hayato's group. Hachimen steps in front of Tove and makes a false confession to Hina, surprising everyone except Hayato. In response, Hina rejects him, expressing that she is not interested in being in a relationship with anyone, and after saying this, she leaves as she has nothing more to do there. Tove and the rest of his group are stunned, while Hayato apologizes as he knew this was the only way our boy could solve the problem. Yukino expresses her hatred for Hachimen's method and walks away in anger. Yu maintains a forced smile and explains her perspective, asking him not to do this again. However, Hachimen defends his method as effective. With this, Yu understands the boy's perspective and is glad that with his method, she was able to make the entire Hayato group return to normalcy. But she feels that, although the method was effective, it did not bring joy to everyone. It turns out that what Hachimen did affect Yu so much that she fled from him with tears in her eyes. The next day, Hina visits our boy on the rooftop of the Kyoto station and thanks him, as despite not helping her with her request, he at least helped her by preventing Tove from confessing. She wanted to avoid this at all costs, as she didn't want Tove's confession to ruin her entire group. In response, the boy tells her that she doesn't need to thank him as he did what he felt was right, something he never thought he would do as he helped people he doesn't care about too much. Both Hina and he are surprised by his actions as they find it curious how he can act to make others happy without caring that he might end up being hated by some. The next day, our protagonist appears sad and downcast about what happened during a trip to Kyoto. His sister notices his sadness and asks him if something happened. She connects her brother's sadness with Yu and Yukino and asks if he did something to them. He responds that nothing happened, he is just lost in thought about his life. In response to Komachi's insistence, Hachimen shouts at her to stop asking nonsensical questions, causing the little girl to get angry with him and leave before she can finish her breakfast. Later, in class, our boy sees Hayato's group acting as usual and heads to the service club room. He seems uncomfortable about going to the club, but he goes anyway. In the club room, the conversation stops when he enters. Yu points out how their group is acting normally despite the incident during the trip and laments not being able to understand them. Yukino comforts her by saying that knowing and understanding are two different things. Hachimen adds that they shouldn't obsess over it and should return to normal. Although Yu nods in agreement, Yukino appears worried about Hachimen's words. Just as Yukino was about to express her thoughts, Shizuka enters with a request, and upon noticing the silence, she asks if everything's okay. Our boy asks her to continue with the request. At this point, Shizuka calls in Meguri and Iroha Ishiki, a new student at the high school. They explain the request, which concerns Iroha's nomination as a candidate for the upcoming student council elections, and that they don't want her to win. When the club members ask why she is participating, Iroha says that her classmates signed her up without asking. She also mentions that she stands out in a negative way because she is in charge of the football club and gets along well with Hayato. In response, our boy confirms in his thoughts that she is the kind of girl other girls would hate. Meguri adds that Iroha is the only candidate and that she doesn't want to lose in an embarrassing way. The protagonist proposes the strategy of using a campaign speech as a way to resolve the issue, making a bad speech so that others know Iroha wasn't responsible for losing. Yu disagrees and with sad eyes realizes what our boy is planning. Yukino also disapproves of the idea. Because of this, Hachiman asks them the reason for their disapproval, to which Yukino, in a burst of hostility, lists all the possible reasons emotionally. Yukino proposes backing another candidate for the election, but our boy objects that no one has announced their candidacy so far. Shizuka, realizing they won't come to a suitable conclusion, decides to postpone the request for another time. Later, Yukino asks Shizuka about the outcome of the argument between him and Hachiman regarding who is the better candidate to accept Iroha's request. Shizuka seems to have completely forgotten this topic and says it was a tie in several aspects. Realizing there is no clear winner, Yukino asserts that there is no reason for them to work together or choose the same method. Hachiman leaves the club as soon as these words are spoken. Our boy walks away with Yukino's final words about how she thought they both hated superficialities. Shizuka asks the boy again what happened and advises him that his way of doing things will not help the person he most wants to help. He then meets Haruno at a restaurant, where she asks him about Yukino and school activities, expressing disappointment that Yukino isn't trying to become student council president. At that precise moment, a student named Kaori Orimoto, who comes along with her friend Nakamachi Chika, spots Hachiman. He also sees them as memories of his past with Kaori begin to surface. She is surprised that Hachiman is attending the same high school, since they met in middle school but then went their separate ways. Noticing Haruno, Kaori asks if she is his girlfriend. The boy replies that she is not, and since she doesn't feel they can consider each other friends, she labels herself as senpai. After the introduction, Haruno begins to ask Kaori questions about the past and Hachiman's love life. Kaori casually responds that he asked her out and that they had never talked before, which surprised her. But Hachiman recalls in his mind that they did talk, even sending her emails for silly reasons and waiting for her responses, which might or might not come. Later, Kaori asks the protagonist if he knows Hayato, to which the boy replies that he does but makes it clear that they are not friends. Kaori gets excited about this, telling Chika that Hachiman might help her get to know Hayato. Hachiman doesn't plan to do this, so Haruno takes the initiative. Haruno calls Hayato, and once he arrives, he meets the girls, after which the girls leave, asking Hayato to send them an email. Hayato asks Haruno the reason for this and for Hachiman's involvement. Haruno explains and then leaves. Hachiman prepares to leave without saying a word to Hayato, but before he can go, Hayato tells him that Haruno seems interested in him. Our boy doesn't feel that way, as he knows that Haruno is just playing with him due to her personality, which is based on being this way in life. The next morning, Yu greets the protagonist and asks if she can go to the service club, as they will have another session regarding Iroha's request. The boy promises to stop by later. Later in the club room, Hachiman points out the flaws in their long-term approach, while Yukino highlights the flaws in the boy's way of doing things, saying he always avoids the problem. With nothing more to say, Hachiman leaves. On a new day, Hayato tells our protagonist that he needs his help because he has a date with Kaori and Chika. The protagonist is not in the mood to help him, firstly because he doesn't think he needs help, and secondly because he wants to spend his weekend at home. Once at home, while Hachiman enjoys playing video games, Komachi suddenly enters the room to hand him his phone. It's Haruno calling, and she asks him to accompany Hayato on his date since she's interested in seeing what Hayato will do. Hachiman refuses, prompting Haruno to pressure him by adding that if he agrees, he will get to see Kaori, his first love. In response, our protagonist informs her that Kaori was just another person in his life who, due to fate, ended up drifting away from him. Haruno insists once more, telling him that if he doesn't agree to go, she will drag him there personally. On the day of the date, our protagonist meets up with Hayato and the girls. The first activity they do as a group is go to the movies. Here our boy can enjoy the film because he's watching Kaori and thinking about how much he liked her in the past. Fortunately, he has already moved on from that love, so he soon focuses on the movie. Later, the group visits the mall, where Hachiman sees Hina and Miura. When the latter sees them, she can't believe that Hayato is with other girls, so she tries to run toward him to make a scene of jealousy. Unfortunately for her, she trips over the clothes she was trying on, allowing our boy to take this opportunity to pull Hayato out of the scene. Unfortunately, Tobe and Iroha suddenly arrive. Tobe clings to Hayato because he needs his help picking out clothes for Iroha, who hopes Hayato will choose good outfits. Upon noticing that Hayato came with others, Tobe decides to leave him alone and goes off with Iroha, hoping that the clothes he chooses will please the girl. After this, the group of friends suggests going out to eat somewhere. The girls wait for the boys to choose a good place, and our boy chooses a cafe restaurant called Caesarea. At this, the girls can't help but laugh as Hachiman referred to the restaurant as Says. Because of this, Hayato picks a regular restaurant and the girls praise him for choosing a place with a less silly name. Once at the restaurant, the girls can't stop laughing about our protagonist's restaurant suggestion, which leads them to see him as a complete fool. For this reason, Hayato does not hesitate to put them in their place, letting them know that Hachiman is not who they think he is. Hayato contacts Yukino and Yu, and when they arrive, Hayato sets out to show his point of view. He makes Kaori and Chika see that Hachiman has cuter and more empathetic friends than they are who don't judge him by his appearance or the things he says. After saying this, Kaori and Chika decide to leave, while Yu and Yukino feel disappointed in Hayato, as they thought he called them to talk about the upcoming Student Council president elections. At that moment, Haruno makes her presence known, and since she has been watching this scene the whole time, she does not hesitate to let Yukino know that she is like her mother, as she makes others do the work for her, since she originally believed that Yukino would run for president before pleasing Hayato. Yukino gets angry at these words, so she leaves after shooting a glance at Hayato and Hachiman, with Yu following her in panic. The next day, Shizuka informs our boy that Yukino said she would run for Student Council president. Because of this, the protagonist decides to confront her and asks if her candidacy is due to what her sister told her the night before. Yukino responds that it isn't, as she wants to run to become the best council president because she doesn't want Iroha or anyone else to make an embarrassing job of it. Ironically, Yu is surprised as she had no idea Yukino was going to run for president, considering that if Yukino achieves her goal, that would mean the service club would have to close its doors. For this reason, later on she tells Hachiman that she also plans to run for Student Council president as she wants to defeat Yukino. The reason? She wants the service club to continue existing, as she is sure that if Yukino becomes council president, the club will be forgotten, since Yukino is a girl very dedicated to a single task. At dusk, Komachi looks for something to eat, completely ignoring Hachiman. Because of this, he decides to offer her some coffee and ask for her help with something very important, first apologizing for having treated her poorly when she tried to help him. She accepts his apology and also apologizes for ignoring him all this time. With the conflict between siblings resolved, she is ready to listen to her brother's new problem. Hachiman explains the whole story to her. Komachi seems to understand but explains that others may not, as she, being his sister, knows what kind of person he is, while others do not. In response, our boy is pleased that she is his sister, so he lets her know. Komachi is touched by his words and gives him the wise advice to do everything possible to prevent Yui and Yukino from running for Student Council president, as she doesn't want to see the service club fade away. The next day, the protagonist, unable to come up with a plan, watches Yu preparing her campaign with Miura and Hina. Later in the library, he drops some books due to his anxiety about not finding a solution to his problem. Luckily for him, Yashiteru sees this and doesn't hesitate to offer his help. They go to the cafe to discuss the matter, but then Komachi arrives, bringing Seika and Saki with her, and they all join the discussion between our boy and Yashiteru. Thinking of a solution for his problem, Hachiman realizes he made a mistake in his approach. Iroha wants to protect her image, and that's why she acts well in front of everyone, as she doesn't want to risk damaging her reputation. That's the reason she doesn't want to lose due to a lack of trust. Understanding this, our boy comes up with a strategy. He asks Saki for a list of people she considers suitable for the Student Council president candidacy. Saki mentions Hayato, Miura, Tobe, Hina, Yu, Yukino, and finally our boy himself, and although he laughs at this, he lets it slide. Our boy and Yashiteru open a Twitter account for the candidate's campaign. They create individual support accounts for everyone: Hayato, Miura, Hina, Tobe, and the others. All those who support each of these candidates are noted by Hachiman on a list. He later shows this list to Iroha, telling her that all those people support her candidacy. Iroha can't believe that so many people are supporting her, which makes her happy inside and makes her want to win the candidacy at all costs. After this, the boy informs Yu and Yukino that it's unnecessary for them to continue with their plan to run for Student Council president, showing them the list of people who support Iroha. Upon hearing this, Yu feels relieved as she can now abandon her plan to combat the candidacy with Yukino. The latter, on the other hand, feels sad that she can't do anything to fight for her candidacy, now that she knows Iroha has many people backing her. That's why she gives up and heads to talk to Shizuka to let her know she is withdrawing from her candidacy. Once Yukino leaves, Yu approaches our boy and pats his head, thanking him for saving the club. Although she isn't sure, Yu knows that Hachiman had something to do with the immense and sudden support for Iroha's candidacy, and that's why she thanks him, as now that Yukino has stepped down from her candidacy, the service club is safe. Our boy doesn't believe the club is entirely safe, as he feels that Yukino was too affected by not being able to run for Student Council president, which could lead her to leave the club or decide to close it. The next day, the election results are announced, showing that Iroha will be the new Student Council president. Our boy wishes her luck, and now that Iroha is the new president, the former president, Meguri, must clear out all her belongings. Luckily for her, the protagonist offers to help her with this. As they walk down the hall, Meguri explains to the boy that she would have loved to have Yukino as president and Yui as vice president. Meguri would also have loved for Hachiman to be part of the student council and be the girl's right-hand man. After telling him this, our boy thinks about this possibility and wonders that if he hadn't told Yukino and Yu about his plan to help Iroha win, everything would be different at this moment, and he wouldn't be feeling guilty about his friends. On a new day in our boy's classroom, he closely observes Hayato and his group of friends, who are discussing some activities to do together on Christmas Day. You can't help but notice that he is watching Hayato and his group, so she asks him why he's looking at them. It turns out that Hachiman was watching them unconsciously, so he changes his attitude and asks to go to the service club. Once there, Yu and Yukino chat while the protagonist wonders to himself why he was observing Hayato's group. At that moment, Iroha bursts into the club crying and asks for their help. She explains the new Christmas event that has been planned as part of her work in the student council. She doesn't want to have to do this job, but Shizuka insisted she does, so she doesn't know how to act or what to do. In response, Yukino agrees to help her, which makes you happy, as it has been a while since the service club has had any activity helping people. Ironically, our boy opposes helping Iroha as he believes she shouldn't depend on others for a problem that concerns the student council. He tells her that the club's purpose is to help people with their personal problems, not with school issues, and gently pushes her toward the exit. Outside the club, Hachiman offers to help Iroha personally and not as part of the club, to which she agrees. They both agree to meet at the conference location, which is the city community center. Upon entering the venue, they meet Tamanawa, the president of the student council of the school with which their high school is co-organizing the Christmas event. After Tamanawa introduces himself to Hachiman and Iroha, the planning conference for the Christmas event begins. The protagonist observes how the committee members throw around random ideas. He also notices that Tamanawa repeats words with the same meaning in English and Japanese successively, which doesn't make much sense. The good thing is that he sees Iroha getting along well with the student council from Tamanawa's school, but not so much with her own student council, as those who should support and advise her don't seem to hold her in high regard, especially since they end up doing the heavy lifting for her. Moreover, the fact that Iroha is a year younger makes communication between them more difficult. The next day, the Christmas event planning committee decides to scale up the event since they feel they are doing less work. Our boy explains to Iroha that they don't have the people, time, or money to do something on a large scale. So with no other options, he decides to act the same way as the others to indirectly reject the idea of including other high schools. This grabs the committee's attention, but his idea isn't fully understood, so he is obliged to rephrase his suggestion, this time without really knowing what he's saying. Ironically, the committee somewhat understands the boy's idea, so they end up including an elementary school in their plans. Later, while our boy is resting after the committee, Kaori approaches him to talk. She asks him if he has broken up with Iroha, to which he replies that he hasn't, as he has never gone out with her or anyone. This seems strange to Kaori, as she thought that if he wasn't dating Iroha, he must have at least gone out with Yui or Yukino. In response, he lets her know that both Yui and Yukino are just his friends from the service club. Kaori is surprised to learn that he is part of a club, and since she has never heard of a service club in her life, she bursts into laughter, finding no reason why a club like that should exist. Strangely, our boy thinks the same as her as he realizes that the service club hasn't done anything in a while. On a new day, our boy finds a list of gifts from Komachi in his backpack, which aren't difficult to get, so he quickly picks them up and brings them to her. In response, Komachi thanks him, saying he's a good older brother. On another day, the boy and Yui head to the service club room, and on the way, she tells him that she already knows he's secretly helping Iroha. He tries to deny it, but Yui is clever and doesn't believe him. Because of this, he asks her not to tell Yukino, and she agrees. Once in the club room, the protagonist asks Yukino for permission to leave early, to which she agrees since the club has no activities at the moment. Afterward, Hachiman visits the community center with Iroha. Both of them see that Tamanawa is leaving the elementary school kids to figure things out on their own without explaining what they should be doing. Interestingly, among these kids is none other than Rumi, the girl the boy met on the trip to Chiba. Rumi talks to Makoto Hamoku, the vice president of the student council, asking him what she and the other kids are supposed to do. Makoto doesn't know how to respond to her, so he asks Iroha for help. She comes up with an idea with Hachiman, so they set a task for the kids. A little later, our boy talks to Tamanawa, asking him to hold an urgent meeting to finalize an idea for the Christmas event. When the meeting starts, everyone throws out different ideas, although some are quite similar, so Tamanawa suggests combining the similar ideas into one. By the end of the meeting, the committee decides on an idea based on music. On a new day, the protagonist and Makoto realize that their plans exceed the budget, so they have two options: find new funds or scale things down. At that moment, Iroha informs them that the elementary school kids finished the decorations, so the boy assigns her the next task. As he does this, Hachiman realizes that he's going against the principles of the service club since, instead of helping Iroha, he's giving her orders as if he were the student council president, not her. Later, the boy sees Rumi working on the decorations for the event by herself. He approaches her and asks what she's doing, to which she sarcastically responds that she's working on the decorations. Hachiman offers to help her, and when they finish the work, Iroha sees them and can't help but misinterpret the situation. Later, the protagonist goes shopping at the mall, where he coincidentally runs into Yukino. They both leave the mall together, and in a comfortable spot, she asks him if he's helping Iroha with the Christmas event. He has no choice but to reveal the truth, But to his surprise, Yukino doesn't seem upset. In fact, she's happy that he's able to help Iroha in his free time outside the club. Because of this, Yukino believes that the boy doesn't need to come back to the service club anymore, as she thinks he's found his purpose in life by helping Iroha. Additionally, Yukino doesn't see a reason for Hachimen to return to the club since she feels he only does it out of pity for her and Yui. The protagonist begins to reflect on Yukino's words. At that moment, Shizuka honks the horn of her car and offers to give him a ride home. On the way, Shizuka lets him know that before taking him home, she wants to bring him to a special place. She takes him to Mihama Bridge, a spot with graffiti left by couples in love. Hachimen looks out at the view from the bridge railing and Shizuka hands him a drink, asking him how things are going with the Christmas event. Hachimen says that everything is going poorly since Iroha and Tamanawa are afraid of causing problems and are trying to incorporate everyone's ideas without anyone taking the initiative or responsibility. Shizuka seems impressed by the boy's observation and understanding of the situation but blames him for not being able to understand other people's feelings. She explains that thinking and feeling are completely different things. She adds that the same goes for Yukino and Yue. Hachimen asks if those two are relevant to the topic, to which Shizuka responds that she was asking about them and not the Christmas event planning committee in the first place. Shizuka tells the protagonist to think more, calculate the path forward, and eliminate solutions one by one, as that's what will lead him to the answer he seeks. The boy responds that this might not help him understand. To this, Shizuka says that might be because he's been calculating things wrong or overlooking something. Shizuka also adds that she has made mistakes in her life, which have led her to her current single status. Surprisingly, the boy comments that no one has good taste in women, which makes Shizuka blush. He thinks that if he had been born 10 years earlier and had met her, he would have fallen madly in love with her, and he regrets that this wasn't the case. This makes Shizuka nervous, and she feels flattered by the boy's words. As thanks, she offers him a clue to solving his existential problem. She asks him whether he took on Ero's request to keep the club alive or to avoid hurting Yukino. Shizuka explains why people avoid hurting those around them by pushing them away and adds that the reason for not wanting to hurt someone is that they come to care about them. Moreover, she says it's impossible not to hurt others since people hurt others simply by existing, whether they're alive or not. A little later, Hachimen spends the entire night awake, thinking about Shizuka's advice, trying to come up with an answer to his problems. He lists his issues such as the situation with Rumi, Iroha, the Christmas event, and his relationship with Yu and Yukino. After overthinking it, the boy realizes that he can't solve these problems on his own. So the next day, he decides to go to the service club, not as a regular member, but as someone who needs help. He tells the girls that the Christmas event is on the verge of disaster since Iroha can't handle everything, and he feels responsible because he was the one who made Iroha become the student council president. Hearing this, Yukino tells him that if he caused all these problems, he should handle solving them on his own. This surprises both him and Yu. Still, the boy agrees with Yukino, so he's willing to back out without causing more trouble. Yu doesn't agree with Yukino's actions and lets her know that Hachimen isn't entirely responsible for all the problems surrounding Iroha. She feels the blame lies with all of them and tells Yukino that she's being unfair to Hachimen. Because of this, the girls end up arguing, and the argument ends when Hachimen, on the verge of tears, says he wants something real that makes him feel alive. Yukino apologizes for not being able to understand his words and runs out of the club, deeply affected by what he said. Yu didn't understand what Hachimen meant either, but seeing Yukino act strangely because of his words, she asks him to go after her. As they leave the club room, Yu and Hachimen run into Iroha, but since they're preoccupied with Yukino, they ignore her. Iroha can't stand being ignored, so she tells Hachimen that Yukino is on the rooftop. When our protagonists find Yukino, she tells them that she still doesn't understand what Hachimen meant. In response, Yu comforts her by saying that she didn't understand either, and that they should spend time figuring it out, though even after doing so, they might still not understand what Hachimen was trying to say. Finally, Yu begins crying, saying that she hates how things are now, which prompts Yukino to kindly call her a coward. The two girls hug while crying, and afterward, Yukino tells our protagonist that she's willing to help him with his problems. On a new day at the service club, our protagonist is hurried by Yukino to explain his problems. He tells her that he doesn't want to talk about them until Yu arrives, to which Yukino agrees. When Yu arrives, our boy takes them to see Iroha, and after that, they enter the conference room of the committee in charge of the Christmas event. Following this, Yukino understands the issues Hachimen and Iroha are facing, and she knows there's work to be done to resolve this in the best possible way. That's why the group of friends visits Shizuka, who is impressed to see them together since Hachimen, after all, followed her advice. When he mentions that they're having trouble organizing the Christmas event, she's surprised that none of them know what a Christmas celebration truly means or what Christmas is really about. To help them discover the meaning of Christmas, Shizuka offers them 4 tickets to an amusement park called Fantasy Destinyland Dreams. Faced with this, both Hachimen and Yukino hesitate about going at this time of year. Yu, on the other hand, is eager to visit the park, so she wastes no time manipulating them into agreeing to go. Iroha asks if only the 4 of them will go, to which Yukino says they can afford to invite a 5th person since she remembered she had an annual pass to the park. On the day of the visit to the park, we find out that the person Iroha decided to invite using Yukino's annual pass is Hayato, who didn't come alone. He brought To, Miura, and Hina along. Once everyone enters the park, our protagonists have fun admiring the place and taking pictures to remember this unforgettable moment. After a wild ride, Iroha ends up exhausted, almost stumbling, but Miura luckily catches her. Seeing her pale, Miura offers her some water. Later, our protagonists board the boat ride to the world of pandas. While Yu and Hachiman are amazed by the cute view, Yukino asks them to keep quiet, which makes our boy wonder how much concentration she needs. After that, the group visits a gift shop where Miura expresses that pandas aren't cute at all, which makes Yukino glare at her furiously and walk toward her in anger. But Iroha quickly mentions that pandas are cute in Hayato's eyes, which calms Yukino down. Yukino then reveals her great fascination with pandas, so she asks Hachiman which of all the different pandas would make a good gift for Komachi. Yui, seeing Yukino holding so many panda plushies, is touched and places a pair of panda ears on her head, asking our boy to take a picture, to which he gladly agrees. Later, while walking toward another attraction, the group gets separated as Hachiman and Yukino fail to catch up with the others. As a result, Hachiman tells the rest of their friends to go on ahead, letting them know that he and Yukino will catch up later. The protagonist and Yukino wait in line for the next attraction without being able to contact Yui or the others. At that moment, our boy notices that Yukino seems unsettled, leading him to believe that she is afraid of this type of ride. She confirms this but tells him that despite her fear, she wants to ride it because on the boat ride, she was able to set her fear aside, so now she can do the same. Both of them board the ride, and during the trip, Yukino tells him that her fear stems from her sister, making her develop a fear of attractions. Before the big drop at the end of the ride, Yukino grabs Hachiman's arm and says, "Save me someday, okay?" This leaves the boy speechless, and he can't say anything, since they fall down the drop that very moment. Later, the boy and Yukino reunite with the rest. They ask Yui to show them the pictures she took at the festival they couldn't attend because they arrived late, and Yui gladly agrees. Suddenly, the fireworks festival begins and everyone watches in awe as the fireworks light up the sky. At that moment, our boy notices Iroha having a conversation with Hayato. The conversation doesn't last long as it ends with Hayato making Iroha cry, and she runs away in tears. Hachiman suspects that Iroha's tears are because Hayato rejected her, so he doesn't hesitate to confront him. Hachiman confronts Hayato after the latter rejected Iroha. Hayato tells him that he felt flattered by Iroha's confession, but believed it was meant for someone else. He praises our protagonist for his ability to change people and lets him know that he's not the nice guy everyone thinks he is. A bit later, Iroha and the members of the service club head home by train. When they reach their destination, the boy questions Iroha's actions, which makes her emotional, so she forces him to stay with her under the excuse that she needs him to carry her bags. On the way, Iroha surprises Hachiman by saying her actions were influenced by the recent conflict in the service club and the boy's desire for something genuine. When the protagonist asks her to forget about it out of embarrassment, she explains that she can't and adds that he has to take responsibility for his actions as he was the one who led her to become the president of the student council. The next day, the student council meets in the service club where our boy proposes an idea to oppose the student council of Tamanoa's school, since their ideas are bound to fail and possibly become a joke. Makito isn't willing to accept Hachiman's idea at this stage, but Iroha surprises everyone by agreeing with him. In the next meeting of the Christmas event planning committee, our protagonists suggest dividing the workload and focusing on a Christmas play, but Tamanoa objects, claiming it will affect synergy and increase risks. The members of Tamanoa's student council agree with him. Our protagonist brings up the lack of budget and manpower again, but Tamanoa already had the answer that they should resolve it within the planning committee. Seeing no other alternative, our boy points out that Tamanoa and his team are afraid to take responsibility. Yukino intensifies Hachiman's argument with a very direct assessment of the situation, followed by Yui, who calms things down by saying that dividing the workload will allow both schools to leave their personal mark on the joint event. After this, Tamanoa and his team run out of arguments and accept Hachiman and Yukino's requests. However, because of how they debated against Tamanoa and his team, Iroha didn't hesitate to scold them for going overboard and treating them indifferently. A few days later, the Christmas event finally arrives. We see Yukino baking cakes while Yu packs cookies. Iroha expresses her nerves to the protagonist and then asks him to keep the schedule, to which he respectfully agrees, calling her Madam President. The students from Tamanoa's school perform their concert first, while the students from our protagonist's high school dress up the elementary school students as angels for the play. Ruby takes center stage during her performance, while the rest of the elementary school angels bring the cakes baked by Yukino to the audience. Both Tamanoa and Iroha give instructions to their subordinates, leading to the great success of the Christmas event. Because of this, the members of the service club celebrate the event's success by having some tea. Our boy thanks the girls for helping him assist Iroha with the event, although he only says this for Yukino, to hint that the service club's help isn't over yet, confusing the boy. On a new day, our protagonists and Komachi visit a shrine in Inage Senjin. Yu asks our boy to accompany her to buy a birthday present for Yukino, to which he agrees but tells her she'll have to wait until the next day. At that moment, Yu receives a call from Miura, who urgently asks for her help with something, forcing her to leave her friends. After Yu leaves, Yukino is about to do the same, but then Komeshi also departs, leaving Hachiman alone with Yukino. Because of this, our boy ends up accompanying Yukino home. The next day, Yu and Hachiman go to the mall together to buy Yukino's birthday present. While searching for the perfect gift, they run into Haruno and Hayato, who were waiting for the traditional New Year's family lunch. Haruno and Hayato explain their situation, and Haruno slyly contacts Yukino to join them. After receiving a reluctant response from Yukino, Haruno persuades her by hinting that Hachiman is with them. Yukino arrives quickly and is surprised to see Yu with our protagonist, as her sister hadn't informed her that Yu would be there. Yu explains to Yukino that she was out shopping with Hachiman, but this only makes Yukino react with suspicion. Later, Yukino's mother arrives at the restaurant and is introduced. She is surprised to learn that they are friends of Yukino. When the Yukinoshita family, along with Hayato, are about to leave for their banquet, Yukino hesitates and looks at our boy, but Haruno understands the message and asks Yukino not to do it, causing a brief awkward moment. In the classroom, Hachiman holds the Potential Career Path Questionnaire, which states that the third-year elective subjects for humanities and sciences will be formalized according to this sheet. Boka suddenly raises a question: whether Hayato is seriously dating Yukino. This leaves everyone speechless. Hayato coldly ignores Uka and learns about the rumors circulating regarding it. Miura looks disdainfully at some students discussing those rumors, making the audience realize that they have spread throughout the school. In the service club room, the members, along with Iroha, celebrate Yukino's birthday by eating cakes and giving gifts. Iroha asks if the rumors are true, prompting Yukino to give her a cold glare in response. Iroha adds that the rumor has led many girls to approach Hayato and demonstrates this, leaving our boy stunned by her response. Later, the members of the service club proceed to read the emails they received and are surprised to see that they got an email from Miura. At that moment, she enters the club room while Iroha leaves just moments after. Miura asks them about the rumors, to which Yukino simply dismisses it as an annoyance from her past and mentions that she and Hayato are just acquaintances, but they have known each other since elementary school due to family circumstances. This leaves Miura dissatisfied with Yukino's response and makes her feel somewhat angry and resentful. Tension in the room rises, with Yu trying to calm Miura while the protagonist tries to soothe Yukino. Yukino responds to Hachiman with a warm smile, saying it's enough if the people close to her understand her. Miura explains that she desires something similar with Hayato. Our boy asks if Miura truly desperately wants the details of Hayato and Yukino's past. Miura expresses her desire with teary eyes, saying that she just wanted to be with Hayato a little longer, but he has started to distance himself. Hachiman understands the depth of her request, but then questions if it would be okay if she ends up being hated by Hayato, as he might not want her to know. But Miura wants to know it even with that risk, so our boy promises to fulfill her request. The next day, the protagonist waits at the soccer field for Hayato. Just then, Yu and Yukino bring him a can of coffee. Hayato responds coldly without giving Hachiman a proper answer. The following day, our boy has lunch with Sika, who gives him more details about her own career path. Sika also shows her growing leadership qualities with her teammates. Hachiman says he might need to rely on Sika in the near future. The protagonist arrives to help Iroha, who drags him by his jacket because he arrived late but finally lets go upon seeing Yukino and Yu behind him. They were waiting for an alumnus meeting to finish. Haruno then appears, and Yukino asks her about Hayato's career choice, but Haruno coldly and rudely responds to Yukino to figure it out for herself. That night, Haruno asks Hachiman to accompany her to the station. On the way, she asks the boy if he inquired about Yukino and Hayato's career paths, but he responds negatively. Haruno asks him to ask Yukino about her choice, and that they will compare answers when they talk next time. Later at home, our boy devises a strategy and calls Sika for help. The next morning, the kids prepare for the marathon that Iroha encouraged Hayato to participate in, prompting Miura to do the same. Yu and Yukino also encourage our protagonist. The marathon begins. Seika and her tennis club run ahead of everyone to block the path, creating space for Hachiman and Hayato to move forward alone. As they run, the protagonist tries to persuade Hayato by asking if Miura was helpful in keeping the girls away from him. He then asks about his career choice. When Hayato hesitates to answer, Hachiman prompts him to choose sciences, pointing out the benefits that won't force the image everyone has of Hayato onto him. They both stop while the others pass them by. This causes Hayato's inferiority complex towards our protagonist to resurface. Hayato promises to do the opposite of what our boy suggests and also expresses his hatred towards him to his face, starting to run quickly. Hachiman apologizes for slowing him down, but Hayato is more than sure of winning, as that is the image everyone has of him, and moves ahead while our boy stumbles and falls. In the end, Hayato wins the race and thanks Iroha and Miura for their support, dispelling the initial rumors about Yukino and him. The protagonist goes to the infirmary and finds Yukino there. They have their usual banter while he looks for the disinfectant. Yukino offers to treat his injury and does not accept a no as a response. While treating his wound, Yukino asks about any developments and Hachiman tells her that Hayato will definitely not choose sciences. The boy finally asks her about her career choice, which surprises her, and she explains that it will be humanities and that they will be together for one more year. Upon leaving, Hachiman encounters Yu outside, who opens the door for him and asks him to go to the party to celebrate Hayato's success in the race. Later, Hayato apologizes for the rumors, but Yukino thanks him for his consideration. Hayato seems astonished and says that Yukino has changed a bit, to which Yukino looks at the students and then at Hachiman. Yu drags Yukino towards the dining area. Hayato explains to our boy that Yukino has changed and is no longer living in the shadow of her sister, but he seriously states that is the only change. The protagonist seems to accept this change, which surprises Hayato, who asks him if he hadn't noticed. Before leaving, Hayato explains his reason for not stating his career path. Hachiman then expresses his hatred towards Hayato, which initially surprises him but then makes him laugh out loud. On a new day, Haruno and Hachiman meet in an open cafe where Haruno questions him about Yukino's career path choice. He refuses to reveal it, but Haruno seems to figure out something and criticizes Yukino for being the same just like in the past. When our boy questions her about the reason for it, Haruno states that it wasn't trust that Yukino has for Hachiman, but is something more sinister. The next day in class, members of Hayato's clique were excited and makes hints for their desire for the Valentine chocolate. Tobe reveals that Hayato is reluctant to accept any Valentine chocolate, which attracts the attention of Yumiko. Yu explains her agreement, since she feels that receiving chocolates from a stranger is weird. Yumiko agrees to it be a clingy act, which causes Yu to glance at Hachiman, who is exiting the class. Our protagonist recalls Yu's request. Just then, Yu catch up to him on his way to the service club. He asked her if he's free in the upcoming days, hinting for the promised date, which made her blush and answer think about it. In the service club, they find Iroha, who was tired of waiting for him. Iroha questions whether Hachiman likes sweets. Understanding the reason behind her words, he answers that Hayato will take anything. Yu informs about Hayato's decision of not taking any chocolate, which freaks Iroha again, question our boy if he likes sweet, to which Yu and Yukino both answers for him. Iroha brings up her idea of making handmade courtesy chocolate and teases the boy if he's going to receive any this year, but Yu explains that he will get this year, which attracts the attention of both Yukino and Iroha. But Hachiman brushes it off as he will receive from Komachi, to which Iroha says that he is a siscon and is into younger girls, though he angrily denies this accusation. Just then, Yumiko and Hina enters with a request of helping Miura make Valentine cookies. Hina once again forces her hobby onto Hachiman. Yumiko feels it to be difficult to help them since Hayato refuses to take any Valentine chocolate. Just then, the protagonist spots Saki in the door. She explains her request relating to chocolate making, which makes Miura poke fun at her, intensifying the tension between them. Saki later explains in detail of helping her sister making chocolate. Our boy plots a scheme to force Hayato to accept the Valentine chocolate as a pretext. Iroha plans an event and proposes that all the requesters can be taught under it, and she contacts Vice President through phone only to find it to be done by themselves. Yu was asked to assist Yukino, while Hachiman was again asked to taste their cookies. Later in the community center, Tamanawa explains his idea of long-lasting relationship between their school after the success of their previous event. And then he shocks to see the service club members, indicating that Iroha slyly included them without informing him. When our boy questions about Tamanawa's school involvement, Iroha answers that they will take care of the budget and will lessen their problems by collaboration, which shocked the service club members, but Yukino was surprised by Iroha's capability. Haruno was invited by Iroha to the event, while Saki brought her little sister to the place, and Yukino was teaching Yumiko to make handmade chocolate. Hayato privately praises our protagonist for his idea, since it provides a way for everyone to be their self in an inconspicuous way, and later brushes it off as Tobe seems to be on cloud 9 from receiving Valentine chocolate from Hina. Our boy answers him that he didn't care about chocolate or Tobe, and especially Tobe. Hachiman visits Iroha, who seems to be doing good on her own after her usual rejection of Hachiman. Iroha feeds him a spoon of chocolate syrup and asks of his opinion, causing him to blush. While the entire time Tamanawa's friends were listening to his usual spat, Kaori asks our boy for any extra mold from him, which he provides her. She thanks him and appears deep in thought about something before she asks him whether she has given him any Valentine chocolate in the past. Our protagonist replies negatively to Kaori, to which she promises to give him some this year. Haruno later questions Yukino if she was going to give any Valentine chocolate to someone, but Yukino says that it was not Haruno's business. In that instant, Yukino knocks over a bowl, attracting the attention of the whole room. Yukino blushes and faces the protagonist to apologize. The both of them then went to pick up the bowl. Later, everyone is shown to distribute and enjoy the chocolates. Shizuka praises our protagonist for doing a good job and express her content to see his social circle grow. She also expresses her happiness to see them grow up close and personal, as she cannot watch over them forever. But Hachiman feels that not to be growth, but in fact to be running around in circles. Yu offers the boy some chocolate as he was apprehensive to eat Yu's cooking, though Yukino adds that she too worked on those chocolate, which assures our boy. The girls watch nervously at him for the result, and he thanks them for the chocolates. But Haruno questions if this is the genuine thing that he desires and adds that all the three of them are boring in a cold voice. Hachiman recalls that it was new experience for him, and he decides to live with it. But Haruno rubbed it in his face with the words she said in the open cafe. As the three of them walks to Yukino's apartment, they see Yukino's mom waiting to discuss about Yukino's future. Yukino's mom began to question Yukino for being late and began to blame herself for letting it go this far. Yu tries her hand by explaining it to be a student council job. Yukino's mom thanks Yu and also threw words with hidden meanings to Yu. Yukino promises to explain things to her mother and requested that she go home for today. On a new day, Yukino apologizes to the members of the service club for her mother's actions the other day. Yu downplays it, saying her mother also gets angry when she is late. Meanwhile, the protagonist explains that this is what mothers do, mentioning the fight between his mother and sister over the entrance exam. Yu believes Hachiman is worried and asks if it's about Komachi. However, he fears ruining his sister's reputation simply by being her brother at the same school. This surprises Yu, as he seems to act as if Komachi has already passed the entrance exam. After this, Yukino presents some homemade cookies and hands a bag to Yu. She reacts happily and thanks Yukino. Yukino takes a small plate of cookies to the boy, telling him he can try one if he wants, while Yukino returns to her seat, blushing. At the end of the day, when they leave school, Yukino intends to give our boy a bag of her cookies before he leaves, but she feels unable to do so. Yu notices what she wanted to do and reacts with surprise. She then starts to walk away, but Yukino gives her a seemingly desperate look. Before anything else can happen, Haruno appears at the school entrance, saying she is there to take Yukino home and stay with her for a few days, claiming she is following their mother's instructions. Yukino says she doesn't understand why her sister has to stay with her, but Haruno disagrees. Haruno starts to pressure Yukino, asserting that all she does is follow in her footsteps without thinking for herself. Hachiman intervenes to stop the argument, telling them that if they must do this, it should be in a private place. Haruno finally retracts and tells Yukino they can talk more when they get home. Yu sees the fear in Yukino about going home, so she invites her to stay at her house for the night. The protagonist is also invited, and he doesn't hesitate to accept the invitation. Yu's mother enters the room with drinks, embarrassing Yu in front of her friends before quickly pushing her out of the room. Yu comments on how annoying her mother is, but Yukino disagrees, saying she can see the close bond between them. Yukino starts to get up and leave, but Yu quickly suggests she stay the night. Hachiman backs her up, saying it will be easier for her to talk to her sister once she has calmed down. Yukino agrees to spend the night at Yu's house and calls her sister to inform her. She repeats the exact words our boy told her, surprising both of them. Haruno accepts her decision but asks to speak with the boy first. Yukino hands the phone to our protagonist and Haruno tells him he is a kind person. Later, Hachiman leaves and Yui and Yukino lie on their beds talking. Yui asks Yukino what she plans to do, but she doesn't answer. Yui, on the other hand, says she already has plans. Then she leans in and asks Yukino to go on a date with her. On a new day, we see Hachiman sending Komachi off for her entrance exam, wishing her luck. He then receives a call from Yu, asking him to go out with her. He reacts in surprise and doesn't hesitate to accept. Both he and Yukino are surprised that they have both been invited to Yu's date. Yukino seems flustered, saying she will step aside if she feels like a third wheel. However, Yu stops her and says she wants them to go together. The place they visit is a large aquarium called Sea Life Park. The group of friends starts looking at the exhibits, with Yu and Hachiman acting surprisingly happy and excited. For the first time, the boy openly enjoys himself, taking pictures and commenting on the fish. Yukino is a bit nervous at first, but even she relaxes and joins the other two. The three of them see a variety of exhibits, joking and chatting. When they reach a penguin exhibit, Yukino decides to step ahead and wait for our boy and Yu. The protagonist looks at the informational sign and sees that humble penguins tend to mate for life. He enters after Yukino, where she proclaims that she feels similar to the solitary fish that struggle, mixing in and following the others. After the aquarium, the three go and ride a Ferris wheel located in the park. Hachiman compares the group's relationship to the wheel, never moving forward and always going in circles. After this, Yu leads the group to an observation area by the coast. She starts talking about their relationship on the verge of losing control of her emotions. She gives Hachiman her handmade gratitude cookies, to which Yukino reacts by searching her bag and looking away with a sad expression, lamenting not having given the boy her cookies when she should have. Yu offers her answer to their problem. She requests to maintain the status quo they have now and that they shouldn't delve into how each one feels, which could ruin their current relationship. Just as Yukino is about to tearfully accept Yu's proposal, our protagonist interrupts and asserts that this is a facade and that he doesn't care about the struggle, which he feels is the best option. Yu says she already knew he would say something like that, with tears streaming down her cheeks. Yukino says it's not the end of anything, and that they still have Hachimen's request to resolve. Days later, Iroha asks the protagonist for help with an extremely important issue. Because of this, the two meet outside the high school, and she explains that she wants to go on a date with Hayato, but she doesn't really know what people do on dates. Hachimen gives her a series of date ideas, like going to the movies or wasting time playing ping pong. The first idea is rejected by Iroha because she realizes that since she and the protagonist don't have the same tastes, she suspects the same would be true with Hayato. So she decides to go with the second idea, playing ping pong. She bets a free meal if she can win their ping pong game, but despite using many tricks and distractions to score points, the protagonist ends up winning. After this, Iroha refuses to pay for his meal, stating that wasn't part of the bet. Later, since Iroha didn't invite the protagonist to eat, he decides to be a gentleman and invites her to eat ramen. He loves ramen, but unfortunately, Iroha doesn't, so she can't enjoy the meal. However, after trying the ramen, she realizes it doesn't taste as bad as she thought, so she gives the protagonist points for treating her to the meal. Afterward, they go to a cafe where the waiter greets them, offering various desserts. Hachimen is very happy about this as he can't stop admiring how good the desserts look, but before he can try them, Iroha forces him to take a picture with her. After this, they walk home, and on the way, she confesses that the date was horrible, but at least she lets him know that she had fun with him, and is looking forward to going out with him again. The next day, in the service club room, Iroha talks to Yu and Yukino. She shows them a series of photos, among them the one she took with Hachimen, where they look very affectionate. This makes Yu and Yukino jealous, and when they glare at the protagonist, he knows he has to do something about it. He goes on a date with both of them, where they walk around the mall, play ping pong, watch a movie, and at the end of the day, they visit the same cafe where he took the infamous photo with Iroha. This time, Hachimen takes a picture with Yu and Yukino, who couldn't be happier after he indulged their whims. When they show the photo to Iroha, she is filled with warmth and suggests they take a new picture, this time in the service club room. The protagonists agree, and when Iroha takes the picture and shows it to them, Hachimen feels like he's finally part of a social group, which makes him feel good inside. C is on 3, and at the end of their visit to Kasai Rinkai Park, the protagonist reflects on how he, Yukino, and Yui will find a genuine solution to the challenges they face in their relationship. After buying them drinks and chatting about Yu's cookies, the boy asks Yukino to tell him and Yui what her request is. Yukino explains that she wants to forge her own path in life instead of following in her parents' and sister's footsteps. Her request is for Hachimen and Yu to support her efforts to become a more capable and independent person. To achieve this, Yukino decides to move out of her apartment and return to the family home to make amends with her family. After Hachimen and Yu agree to her request, the three head to Yukino's apartment, where they are greeted by her older sister, Haruno, who is intoxicated. The next day, Hachimen reviews his younger sister Komachi's frantic preparations as she is getting ready for the second stage of her entrance exam for Hachimen's school, which consists of an interview. He agrees to meet her at the mall after the exam. While waiting for her, he runs into his classmate Saki and her younger sister Keika. Our protagonist and Saki discuss their younger brother's entrance exams, Teishi, and their experiences with their respective siblings before a euphoric Komachi joins them. After Saki and Keika leave, Hachimen and Komachi go on a shopping trip before heading home. Komachi insists on organizing the house and doing chores to make up for her inability to do so while studying for her exams. Afterwards, she gives her older brother a heartfelt thank you for his support, which brings unusual tears to our boy's eyes. While the protagonist buys a coffee from a vending machine, he runs into Hayato, who openly asks him about Komachi's entrance exams while subtly inquiring about how things are going between him and Yukino. Our boy has a vivid memory of the events from 2 nights before when Haruno greeted him, Yukino, and Yui at the entrance of Yukino's apartment. As Haruno reclines on the couch sipping champagne, Yukino declares that she wants to go home to make amends with her family. Haruno is surprised by this request but agrees to help Yukino, and then asks if she can move into her apartment while Yukino lives in the family home. When Haruno leaves for the convenience store, Yui eagerly offers to help Yukino pack her things for the move. Hachimen leaves the two of them but runs into Haruno outside the building. As they walk with Haruno clinging to Hachimen, he repeats to her that she's drunk. However, she insists that she can't be tipsy because she's always aware of what others think and her surroundings, a statement that reflects the various facades of Haruno, beyond which few, except our boy, can see. She ends by saying that Hachimen is probably just like her, and that he can't get drunk either. The protagonist's memory ends and he meets Yui after class. As the two walk toward the service club, the boy asks Yui about the blanket she's carrying. She quietly expresses her hope that the club will continue long enough for her to leave the blanket in the room. When they arrive, Hachiman finds the door locked. Before Yu can call Yukino to ask if she has the key, our boy goes to the teacher's room to ask Shizuka for the key, only to find out that Yukino has already picked it up. He returns to the room and finds Yukino and Yui there. Just as they are getting settled, Iroha enters carrying a laptop, a projector, and a screen. The four sit down to watch an episode of a foreign TV series that features a prom. Iroha then explains that she wants to organize a prom for the graduating class to set the stage for her to attend one when she graduates and to be the prom queen. Although our protagonists initially reject Iroha's request, Yukino decides to take on the burden of helping to organize the prom outside of her role as president of the service club as part of her efforts to become more independent and self-reliant. As Iroha joyfully hugs Yukino in gratitude, Yu recalls the events from a couple of nights earlier. After helping Yukino pack her things, Yu returns home and sees a picture of herself, Yukino, and Hachiman at Fantasy Disneyland Dreams. At that moment, she remembers how, while petting a stuffed panda on Yukino's bed, she accidentally discovered the photo Yukino had bought in which she is holding the protagonist's arm while they were on a water ride at the amusement park. A few days later, our boy is alone in the classroom as usual until Seika approaches him. Seika asks why he's alone, to which he explains that he has been spending a lot of time alone playing video games due to the suspension of the service club activities caused by Yukino's help with the prom. Seika replies that he should maintain healthier habits. After Hachiman asks Seika if she's available to hang out with him soon, he receives a text message from Komachi. Immediately after, Saki runs out of the classroom, and our boy and Seika follow her. They arrive at the front of the school, where the results of the entrance exams for high school have been posted. Komachi runs toward her brother, crying and telling him she was accepted into high school. On the other hand, Teishi shows an admission flyer to his sister Saki, who is happy that he got in as well. Komachi then notices Yu standing nearby and rushes toward her in an even more emotional state than she showed with her brother. Then Hachiman texts his mother with the good news. Later on the stairs outside the school, Iroha asks our boy to help her and Yukino plan the prom. Although he initially resists the idea, he ultimately gives in and agrees to help them. The protagonist warns Iroha not to overload Yukino with work due to her limited stamina and tendency to get lost in her tasks. In response, Iroha half-jokingly reflects on whether he is so protective of Yukino and why. Then, Iroha playfully criticizes him for treating girls like younger sisters. When they arrive at the student council room to help plan the prom, our boy is surprised to see Yui helping as well and notices Iroha's apparent lack of involvement as she is next to the teapot while Yukino and Yu exchange ideas on the whiteboard. When the protagonist learns that the three have already started promoting the prom, he is surprised until he discovers that they have been promoting it on social media. When he comments that he still doesn't quite understand the concept of a prom, Yukino invites him to participate in creating a promotional video for the event. The four of them prepare to dress in formal attire for the promotional video, which will be filmed in the school gym. Iroha, realizing she didn't explain that Hachiman would appear in the video as a dancer, apologizes for the misunderstanding. As he prepares to put on his tuxedo, Iroha apologizes again for the confusion she caused. Then, our protagonist convinces himself that the tuxedo makes him look like a failed pianist on the brink of insanity. At that moment, Yukino enters dressed in an elegant tailcoat, with her hair tied back in a ponytail to play the role of the male partner in the video. Our boy gives Yukino a rare compliment about her appearance, and she adjusts his pocket square and cufflinks. Then he steps out of the changing room to check on Yui, who is being helped with her dress by Saki. Yu insists that the dress fits snugly at the waist before screaming in pain as Saki tightens it. When Saki steps away, she advises Hachiman that Yu should be careful walking in her heels and with the length of the dress. Yu applies makeup while feeling nervous about Hachiman's gaze. She insists that she wants to look her best because, although the final video won't show people's faces, she wants to look good for the original video that they will keep for themselves to watch. Hachiman reluctantly offers his arm as support to Yui as they descend the stairs outside the changing room. The commotion of the extras chatting in the gym is interrupted by Yukino's arrival, whose beauty leaves everyone in the room in awe. Iroha, her dance partner, teases Yukino and walks arm in arm with her, which makes Yukino nervous. The two put on an impressive dance performance for the first recording of the promotional video, thanks to Yukino's dancing skills. However, Yukino and Iroha find the video looks too professional, so they ask our boy and Yu to dance together as the main focus of the next recording. After To tries to motivate Hachiman for the dance, our boy and Yu would briefly dance to a slow song, during which he feels uncomfortable due to sweating and Yu laughs nervously. The song then switches to an upbeat track, during which our boy leaves the dance floor to observe the action from a distance while Yukino roams the floor filming the dancers. He tells himself that this type of party is not his scene. Our protagonists, Yukino, Yu, and Iroha review and project the photos from the prom promotional session while reflecting on the success of the event and generating positive feedback towards holding the dance. As the boy begins to consider the next steps in planning the event, Yukino reiterates that she and Iroha are capable of organizing the dance without the help of him and Yui, reaffirming her desire to exercise her independence in the planning. As Hachiman and Yu leave, he suggests that they go shopping to find a gift for Komachi to congratulate her on passing the entrance exam for high school. They decide to visit a nearby mall. Once there, they visit the IKEA furniture store. While exploring the store, they come across a display of a studio apartment. Yui invites the protagonist to sit with her on the bed and asks what he wanted to be when he was little. He lists a variety of professions that typically have high salaries. Yu responds by pointing out that all of them are related to money, before saying that she wanted to own a flower shop, a bakery, or become an idol. She then adds that she also wanted to be a girlfriend with a hint of nervousness in her voice. Yu then suggests that they make a homemade gift for Komachi. The next day, when Yu and Hachiman prepare to go home since they have no activities to do in the service club, they are suddenly intercepted by Iroha, who takes them to the school reception room. There they find Yukino in a tense confrontation with her sister Haruno and her mother, while Shizuka looks on. Yukino's mother points out that a minority of parents and community figures are concerned about the inappropriate behavior students might display at the dance and expresses her worries about allowing the event to continue. Iroha responds angrily, asking why those dissenters didn't voice their concerns earlier. Yukino's mother then asks Haruno if there was any dissatisfaction with the previous thank you parties organized by the school, to which Haruno replies that there wasn't. Hachiman reflects on how intimidating Yukino's mother is as she maintains a pleasant and welcoming facade but counterattacks without warning. In response to our boy's question about why the school gave its implicit consent for students to organize the dance, Shizuka gives a measured response, noting that the school has always prided itself on respecting students' autonomy in organizing events. Yukino's mother concludes by asking her daughter to come home earlier and not to overload herself with the dance. Yukino's mother leaves, and Shizuka points out that it would be best for her not to interfere with the planning of the dance next year. Haruno then expresses surprise that Shizuka hadn't informed the others about her departure from the school, alarming everyone in the room. While Yukino reflects on how to appease the dissenting parents, the protagonist suggests that they start acting on it. However, Yukino declines his offer, reiterating that she must take care of the planning on her own. Haruno scolds Hachiman for acting like an older brother to Yukino and begins to describe the relationship between the boy, Yukino, and Yui, before Yukino interrupts her. Yukino sadly asks our protagonist not to help her despite him pleading to be allowed to do so. The next day, on a rainy morning, Hachiman reflects on a conversation he had with Haruno shortly after the meeting. During that conversation, she asks him how he would describe the relationship he has with Yukino and Yu. He describes it as a love triangle, which amuses Haruno. He then responds that the correct word to characterize their relationship is codependency, pointing out how the boy feels good when Yukino depends on him. He continues to explain that Yukino needs to stop relying on others and become an adult, which according to Haruno, means giving up the same things she had to let go of. Returning to that rainy afternoon, the protagonist and Yu walk home together. While Yu reflects on where and how they could prepare a homemade cake for Komachi, she receives a panic message from Iroha, who is in a frenzy because the dance is at serious risk of being cancelled. Without hesitation, our protagonist calls Shizuka and asks if he can go help. However, Shizuka expects Hachiman to provide a good reason for wanting to help Yukino, reminding him that Yukino specifically asked to stop the preparations for the dance. After giving a series of vague responses, our boy speaks more sincerely and says that he wants to help Yukino with the dance because he promised her that one day he would save her. Satisfied with this answer, Shizuka tells Hachiman to return to the school. After hanging up, he notices a tear rolling down Yu's cheek and her eyes filled with tears, which worries him. Even though the boy offers to accompany her home, Yu downplays the situation, saying that her tears were of relief and assuring him that she is fine. As he runs back to the school, Yu hides behind a metal fence and drops to the ground, crying. She monologues about how good it was that her tears stopped, considering that our boy would have gone to help her if she had continued crying in front of him. She becomes more distressed as she reflects on her inability to stop the special relationship between Hachiman and Yukino, while recalling the photo Yukino had of her and him at Fantasy Disneyland Dreams. She concludes by noting that despite her rationalizations, she continues to cry and wishes she had cried in front of Hachiman so that he would help her. Yu encourages our protagonist to return to school, and he quickly does so, heading to the teacher's lounge. Shizuka informs him about the school's administration's intention to allow students to voluntarily cancel the dance and about Yukino's situation. With a general overview of the problem in mind, Hachiman formulates his plan. Near the student council room, Iroha stops our protagonist before he enters and confronts him about his intentions. Iroha also questions the boy's actions and reminds him that Yukino will reject his offer of help just as she did before, but Hachiman counters by saying that he has a plan on how to talk to her. Iroha remains unconvinced but goes back with him to the student council room. Once in the room, Yukino's actions indirectly imply that she still refuses to accept Hachiman's help, but she informs him about her current plan anyway. The boy argues that her plan would work under normal circumstances and again offers his help. Yukino still declines, and our protagonist decides to resolve the matter by challenging her to a competition. Yukino accepts the challenge, while Iroha can only watch as the two argue and establish the terms of the competition. With the challenge ratified, Hachiman leaves and Yukino continues working on her proposal for the dance, while Iroha reflects that the protagonist Yukino and Yui are a complete headache. Iroha catches up with the protagonist and is upset about the outcome of the confrontation between him and Yukino. After Hachiman buys drinks for himself and Yukino, at Iroha's insistence, they mutually apologize, and Iroha reveals the real reason she wants to organize a graduation dance. At our boy's house, he and his sister discuss the respective plans at their schools. He then shows Komachi a social media post about the dance at his school, which gets her quite excited. Hachiman internally admits that the event might get cancelled and that he still doesn't know what to do about it. At school, the protagonist reveals his plans for the dance and his confrontation with Yukino to Yu. She then decides to help him with his plans for the dance as they enter the classroom. Later, at a restaurant, the protagonist explains his plan to gain approval for the dance by manipulating the impression of the opposition. They then focus on the immediate issues, mainly staffing and budget. To address the staffing issue, Hachiman recruits the help of Yoshiteru, Seika, and Saki, who meet with them at the restaurant. In the end, Yoshiteru decides to help our boy, while Seika thinks she won't have enough time and Saki decides to help Yukino, but Hachiman is grateful she came anyway. Afterward, the protagonist and Yui head to an internet cafe called Labo to research references they can use for their fake dance. They narrow down the venue options based on the budget, but nothing has been decided yet. As Hachiman continues his research, Yu pretends to fall asleep on the boy's shoulder and wishes that moment could last forever. In the video game club room, Yoshiteru introduces Minami's brother and Hatano, both club members, to our protagonist and Yui. Our boy gets straight to the point and explains his plan to hold a fake dance. They think he's crazy. With Yu's help, they agree to assist Hachiman with his plan, especially Minami's brother, who has something in common with our protagonist. For now, our boy is using the video game club room as his headquarters to plan the dance. During the meeting, they discuss ideas on how to make their dance stand out and decide that a viable option is to hold a joint dance with Kai and Suyu and get the help of the captain's committee. Hachiman heads to Mihama Library, where Yu, Kaori, and Tamanoa have already arrived. Kaori asks him why he didn't contact her instead of Yui. He responds that he has a new phone and somehow lost her contact. Moving on to the meeting, our boy presents the proposal for the joint dance. Kamanoa points out the flaws and issues with the proposal. The protagonist counters the flaws and they have a kind of rap battle. Despite the proposal's problems, Tamanoa and Kaori show interest in the joint dance. The meeting concludes and Kaori invites them to eat with them, but Hachiman declines, making the excuse that he will continue working on the proposal at school. Back in the video game club room, our boys group proceeds to design the logo and social media page for the joint dance. Yoshiteru also brings his camera at Hachiman's request and suggests the name Sobu High School Prom, the Psycho Project, as the name for the joint dance. The protagonist accepts the name and prepares to meet with Hayato, the leader of the captain's committee, while the rest finish their individual tasks. On his way to the football field, our boy sees Yukino and talks to her. They have their usual exchange of words and discuss the progress of their respective dances. Yu soon joins them and tells Yukino that she is helping Hachiman. As Yukino and Yu chat, the protagonist watches them and reflects on his situation with what he feels is like a prayer. Hayato clarifies the protagonist's request and confirms with him that he is planning a fake dance, which our boy confirms. Hayato rejects Hachiman's request as the captain's committee has already agreed to help the student council, and he also refuses to help him personally. Their conversation then shifts to helping Yukino, and Hayato criticizes and questions our boy's method. Hachiman simply responds with a man's pride, but also admits that it's a codependent relationship. At the beach, the protagonist prepares for the photo shoot he will use for his dance with Yu, Yoshiteru, Hina, and Miura. During the photo session, Hina also questions Hachiman's method, to which he responds that the simplest methods are the hardest. Back in the video game club room, our protagonist's group selects the photos that will be used for the announcement of their dance, which is published under the title Sobu High School Prom, the Psycho Project, on social media. With the announcement made, Hachiman calls Haruno and asks her to filter it, something that would benefit them. Haruno asks our boy why he is taking this so far, which she sees as codependency, but he responds that it is about mutual support. Haruno also reminds them that they are dealing with their mother to gain approval for the dance, but she gives them a hint. At school, Shizuka informs Hachiman that Yukino's mother wants to speak with him. On the way, Shizuka and the boy discuss the upcoming conversation. In the meeting room, Yukino's mother asks if Hachiman is the organizer of Sobu High School Prom, a psycho project, to which our boy indirectly denies. Shizuka points out that they could face a problem with students who will go ahead with the dance without their knowledge or control. Yukino's mother responds that there are still stubborn members of the organization. Considering the position of the lady whom our boy sees as the strongest piece on the board, he decides to ask her to help him convince the opposition, noting that he has no persuasive power over them. The lady is impressed by Hachiman's boldness and asks for his name. Our protagonist fulfills the lady's surprise by realizing that she is the same person from the car accident, and they exchange apologies and greetings. The meeting concludes, and Yukino's mother agrees to the plan to convince the opposition. In the restaurant, Haruno and Hayato had a discussion about the codependency Hachiman mentioned earlier. Just like in the flashback of Yu's conversation with Haruno, Hayato also disagrees, but Haruno insists and reminds him how it was. The protagonist goes to the service club and finds Yukino looking out the window. He tells her that their dance was approved, leading to a discussion about who really won their confrontation, debating the terms they had agreed upon, but no winner is decided. Yukino, with tears in her eyes, tells Hachiman that she enjoyed being in the service club and wants to end their false relationship. In the end, our boy admits defeat and asks her about her wish. Yukino asks that Yu's wish be granted, and Hachiman agrees and leaves the room. Yukino emails Yu to meet, and they do so near a bus stop. They talk about the dance and how Yukino couldn't refuse our boy's help. Seeing Yukino's smile, Yu realizes that this relationship has come to an end. At the protagonist's house, Komachi notices that he is distracted and asks if something has happened. He responds that he can't tell her anything until it's all over. Their conversation shifts to planning a celebration. Later at school, the boy sends a message to Yu to meet up, even though they are both in the classroom. As Mira watches them, Yu scolds our boy, and they both leave together. While walking, they discuss the dance and Yu's encounter with Yukino. Upon hearing this, Hachiman asks her to stop at the park for a moment. Here, the protagonist asks Yui what her wish is and tells her that he has accepted his defeat. Yu responds that she is a greedy person and cannot ask for just one thing. She tells him the things she wants to do, such as helping Yukino with the dance and organizing a party for Komachi, among other things. She also tells him that she wants to fulfill her wish. The next day at school, Mira briefly warns Hachiman about his relationship with Yu before she arrives, and they both walk together to the classroom. On their way, they run into Iroha and Yukino. Yukino informs them about the preparations for the dance and the logistical problems, but still refuses to accept the protagonist's help, even though Iroha indirectly hints that they need more people. As they say goodbye, Iroha whispers to our boy that he is welcome to help whenever he wants. After Yukino and Iroha leave, Yu asks Hachiman to come to her house on Saturday. At Yu's house, she and our protagonist decide to make cookies for Komachi's party, but Yu's mother insists on making fruit tarts, so they go shopping for the ingredients. Back in the apartment, Hachiman and Yu taste the tarts. Yu's mother suggests using a secret ingredient and asks Hachiman to guess what it is. The protagonist answers, and Yu's face turns red from embarrassment. With the fruit tarts ready, Hachiman leaves and Yu walks him outside. Hachiman gives her a belated gift for White Day, and as they walk, he can only wish to spend his days fulfilling his desires one by one. Back at school, the graduation ceremony takes place, where Iroha gives her farewell speech to the senior students, followed by Meguri. As the latter delivers her farewell speech, our boy tries to hold back tears, causing Tove to think he has a pollen allergy and offers him a handkerchief, followed by Seka. Meguri concludes her speech with the same closing she used at the cultural festival, to the delight of the students. After the ceremony, Hachiman and Yu go to the student council room to say goodbye to Meguri in person. After Meguri leaves, Yu and Iroha see the protagonist sniffing and wonder if he likes Meguri. He replies that he doesn't understand how there are people who don't like her, but Iroha remains upset and assigns Hachiman a small task. Preparations for the dance are underway in the high school gym. Iroha assigns roles to everyone involved. Yukino is in charge of everything in general, Iroha is the presenter and handles the sound system. Yui is at the reception, and our protagonist is the sound assistant in case Iroha gets busy. As he hands a headset to Iroha from Yukino, Iroha comments that they no longer need an interpreter for their conversation. Iroha also offers Hachiman, Yukino, and Yu a position in the student council, but the boy replies that he will think about it with an open mind. As the dance progresses, the protagonist runs into Yu, who is also on a break from her duties. They both confirm that they haven't decided on a wish they want, but they share a dance. At the end of the dance, Yukino reminds Hachiman of the wish that is expected to be fulfilled. With the dance over, everyone gathers in the conference room. Yukino's mother congratulates her on the success of the dance, and they exchange kind words. Yukino also thanks Haruno, but Haruno expresses her dissatisfaction with the situation. Haruno leaves, and the three discuss their situation, confirming that the service club will be dissolved. Iroha enters the room just as Hachiman tries to say something, but he decides to leave hurriedly. Yukino follows him, also thanking him for his help, but not letting him go. The boy meets Haruno and asks her about her earlier statements. Haruno replies that Yukino's wish is an act of compensation and explains how she sees the relationship between the three, to which the protagonist can only internally ask her to stop, of course, and admits that he is aware of that. Haruno reminds him once again that he can't get drunk, and as she leaves, she wonders if there is anything genuine. Shizuka sees Hachiman still outside the conference room where Haruno left him and offers to take him home. Before going home, they stop by a large game center. Shizuka practices batting while our boy watches. Still at the baseball field, Hachiman and Shizuka continue their conversation about the codependency that Haruno mentioned to him. Shizuka gives him an example using a piece of napkin. After a couple more pieces of advice from Shizuka, our boy decides to resolve the relationship his way. Once graduation from high school concludes, Yui's found waiting for the protagonist by the shoe lockers, and once they reunite, they walk together toward Nakatakahama Park. In the park, Yu asks him if he's okay with how things are and urges him to share his thoughts and respond. He replies, and Yui reaches a realization and tells him her wish. He accepts and commits to being better than yesterday. After helping Yu carry her bag home, they part ways. Upon entering her house, Yu's mother greets her and hugs her while she starts to cry as Yu realizes they are experiencing true romance for the first time. In the student council room, Iroha interrogates Yoshiteru, Sagami's brother, and Hatano about the joint dance. The three try to come up with excuses, but it's in vain as Iroha forces them to respond. They tell Iroha to ask the protagonist about the details as they were simply following his direction in good faith, but he is worried at the moment. Iroha expresses her annoyance every time Yukino's mother appears at the school. In the teacher's lounge, Hachiman, Shizuka, and Yukino have a meeting with her mother. Despite the lady's objections, our boy continues to insist on moving forward with the joint dance and also uses Haruno's advice to express his dissatisfaction with the graduation dance. After more discussions and suggesting that Yukino help manage the joint dance, the lady allows her daughter to decide. Knowing Yukino's personality, Hachiman explains the challenges they need to overcome for the joint dance and tells her that she doesn't need to force herself. But Yukino agrees to help manage the joint dance anyway, and the meeting concludes. Later on, the Inajiritsu Bridge, the protagonist and Yukino walk together and discuss what happened during the meeting, including her surprise that her mother accepted the joint dance. Yukino questions Hachiman's actions and what happened with Yu's wish. He responds that his actions are part of Yu's wish and provides further explanations. He continues to argue that he and Yukino have poor communication skills and that they couldn't be together again if they separated. Hearing this, Yukino replies that she is different and is trying to improve her communication skills, and she tries to leave quickly. The protagonist attempts to talk more while catching up to her and hesitates for a moment. Then he runs and takes Yukino's hand. To her surprise, despite feeling embarrassed, Hachiman confesses that he wants to get involved with her. Although Yukino belittles herself and dismisses her value as a partner for our boy, he insists that he likes her just the way she is and appreciates both her good and bad attributes. Yukino asks for his life as she holds onto him, and they hold hands, and after this, they officially become a couple. In the service club room, the protagonist and Yukino discuss the challenges for the joint dance. Hachiman is reluctant to ask Yu for help, but Yukino plans to talk to her soon. For the venue, since the dance involves multiple schools, they research the Inaji Coastal Park to see if it's a viable location and decide to inspect it in person the next day, which is also a holiday. The next day at Inaji Coastal Park, they notice that the park is crowded. After taking a break and snapping some selfies, they check out the Surf Ocean Terrace, along with a chapel, event hall, and facilities, and decide to use that location for the joint dance. The following day, back in the service club room, the protagonist and Yukino work on processing the applications for the venue. Moments later, Iroha arrives with Makido and the student council secretary to help. Then Seika also enters the room, and Hachiman asks the entire tennis club to assist with the preparations, which he agrees to. Unexpectedly, Hayato, Tobe, Mura, Hina, and Saki also enter the room to help with the setup. Just as the meeting is about to start, Yu joins them, relieving our boy and Yukino. After hours of work, everyone takes a break and goes to the sauna. The day of the joint dance arrives. Preparations are underway in the event hall. Komachi arrives and Yui introduces her to Iroha, and the two become friends immediately. Noticing that Yui is still trying to come to terms with her relationship with Hachiman and Yukino, they encourage her. Yukino's mother also arrives and reminds her daughter of the potential issues with the joint dance, to which she responds that she is willing to take responsibility. Haruno also wishes her luck and jokingly warns our boy to be prepared. During the dance, the protagonist coordinates with his team to address the catering issue and runs into Yua, whom he offers help while Iroha and Komachi watch, apparently planning something. The joint dance concludes and Shizuka praises Hachiman for the great attendance at the dance. Shizuka then dances with him, but he trips and they both fall. She then asks him about his search for something genuine. Satisfied with his response, they shake hands as our boy thanks her for everything she has done for him, and they say goodbye. He then goes to see Yukino, who bombards him with more work. Suddenly, Yukino tells Hachiman, "I love you," and immediately leaves, leaving him speechless. In the service club room, the protagonist and Yukino are finishing up the paperwork for the joint dance. Yukino invites him to dinner at her house tomorrow at her mother's request. To this, he tries to decline the invitation, but Yukino casually lists the schedules of everyone she knows, effectively dismantling all the excuses he can come up with. Then, Komachi enters the room and asks to join the club. Yukino welcomes her, and a protagonist tells her that the club no longer exists and that they are not recruiting members. Just then, Iroha enters the room, catching her breath, and presents them with an approved application to join the service club, with Komachi as president and Hachimen and Yukino as members. Our boy and Yukino are surprised by this, and soon Yu also enters the room with an application. Yukino welcomes her and prepares tea. As the reformed service club gets ready for its first application, Hachimen thinks to himself, my teenage rom-com is mistaken, just as I expected. OVA 3 weeks later, Iroha comes to the service club to ask Hachimen to take care of solving the problem of the large expenses caused by organizing the joint dance. The boy gives her a couple of solutions, but before he could discuss how to really fix the issue, Komachi reminds him that today he has a dinner with Yukino and her mother. Because of this, Hachimen gets nervous, and since he doesn't want to disappoint Yukino's mother, he decides to leave with her right away. After they leave, Yu, Komachi, and Iroha bet that Hachimen will cause some kind of disaster at the dinner. At the dinner, our boy is quite nervous as his first challenge is choosing the correct cutlery. Fortunately, he picks the right one, which causes Yukino's mother to compliment him for having good table manners. Afterward, Yukino's mother asks if his family is known for having good manners, to which he confidently responds that his family has better manners than hers. This bold comment made Haruna laugh and Yukino scold him. Ironically, the lady was not offended by the remark. In fact, she praised him for his courage. As the dinner continued, Hachimen made another bold comment, this time related to Yukino's mother's work, which evidently upset Yukino. What bothered her even more was her sister asking if she was dating him. The two of them looked at each other without saying a word. The next day in the service club room, Hachimen and Yukino distanced themselves and seemed unwilling to interact. Yuba noticed this, so she didn't hesitate to ask the boy out on a date. During the date, Yui and our boy visited an aquarium, where they admired the fish, the sharks, and finally the penguins. After that, Yu revealed to him the reason she asked him out. She couldn't help but notice that he and Yukino were distant, so she wanted to take advantage of their dispute to go out with him and confess her feelings. Afterward, Yu hugged him, and although he tried to return the hug, he couldn't, as he didn't feel the same way. He let her know that her feelings were not mutual, but curiously, she already knew that. This date was just to get a weight off her shoulders by finally revealing what she had felt for him all this time. She believed that now that she had expressed her feelings, she would eventually forget that she was ever in love with him. Hachimen was happy to see this new Yu and told her not to give up on her feelings, as she could find someone better than him if she tried. The next day, our boy gave Yukino a gift to apologize for his erratic behavior during the dinner with her mother. When she opened the gift, Yukino was touched to see that it was Japanese sweets. She didn't plan to share any with Hachimen, as she was still angry with him about the dinner. Yu saw how Yukino was treating the boy, so she didn't hesitate to steal one of her sweets and told her to take better care of Hachimen. She warned that if Yukino mistreated or neglected him again, she would steal him away. This created a jealous scene between Yukino and Yui, which was nothing more than an act, so they laughed when it was over. Iroha also joined the scene by stealing the Japanese sweet that the boy had managed to grab from Yukino's box. Iroha didn't hesitate to flirt with him, which made him very nervous as Yu and Yukino were glaring at him, just waiting for him to make a single mistake to give him a good lesson.